Fechado. Por mais atrapalhados.
525. 2525. Cinco dois, cinco dois, cinco dois. 52, 52, 52, 52, 52, 52, 52, mais. Levanta mais 25. 25, 25, 25, levanta mais, 25, 25, mais, 25, 25, 25, 25, já, pode manter assim. Un, deux, trois. 1, 2, 3. Alô, 2. Alô, 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 1, 2, 3, 4. Alô, 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 alô. Alô? It's okay? Ai. Alô, 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 1, 2. Alô, alô, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. The volume is okay. Or you need to... Ai, 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 ai.
I don't know what to say or what. We already adjusted the volume
Okay.
10 times.
Yes.
10 times it was.
Sometimes.
It was not.
But they're not ready. They just send a new link, but they're not.
They say it's live on YouTube. What happened?
Hello. Yeah. So it's saying that we use. So we didn't listen anything because I think you are all in the mute. No, I think all you are all in. We can. Hello, test. You hear me? Hello. No, because I think all of you in mute. Can you hear me? Hello, test. Perfect. Okay. Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you.
La réponse officielle. Le deuxième sujet, l'accès à l'eau, c'est juste un échange de vues et c'est la raison pour laquelle il n'y a pas de rapport. À tout à l'heure, donc nous pourrons échanger comme ça librement. Donc, souhaitez-vous encore formuler des observations? Le deuxième sujet, encore une observation? Non? Échange de vues et c'est la raison pour laquelle il n'y a pas de... Donc, la parole est maintenant donnée aux députés. Nous pourrons échanger comme ça librement. Ah mais non, je tiens à dire ça. Donc, souhaitez-vous encore formuler des observations? Je continue ici. Ah oui. Bon, comme je vous l'ai dit, je remplace quelqu'un, donc c'est toujours un peu compliqué, hein? Et ça ne fonctionne pas comme on le veut. Donc, avant de commencer notre réunion ordinaire, je tiens à vous informer de ce qui suit. L'ouverture officielle de la 42e session de l'Assemblée parlementaire paritaire aura lieu le lundi 31 octobre à 11 h dans la salle de session et nous vous prions de bien vouloir prendre place avant 10h45. De la 42e session, permettez-moi également de vous informer qu'une photo de groupe est prévue à la fin de l'ouverture officielle. Veuillez donc ne pas partir directement. Restez encore 5 minutes, s'il vous plaît. 10h45. Médias sociaux, nous sommes encouragés à communiquer sur l'APP, sur nos différents canaux de médias sociaux pendant notre séjour à Maputo, afin d'accroître la visibilité de l'Assemblée et de son travail. Comme hashtag, veuillez toujours utiliser hashtag OACPS, hashtag EU. De plus, vous pouvez également utiliser hashtag Maputo, si l'espace le permet. L'attaché de presse du Parlement tweetera à propos de l'APP via le compte Twitter de... ah ben ça c'est nous. Via le compte Twitter d'Europarl Développement qui porte le pseudo EP, le trait en bas, Development. À propos de l'APP via le compte Twitter de... Maintenant, je donne la parole à mon co-président pour tout commentaire qu'il souhaiterait formuler et pour présider le point suivant de notre ordre du jour. Chers collègues, vous avez la parole. Maintenant, je donne la parole à mon co-président pour tout commentaire qu'il souhaiterait formuler et pour présider le point suivant de notre...
Thank you, co-chair, colleagues. Without further ado, I would like to proceed with the agenda at hand, and we will be dealing with agenda number 3, strengthening parliamentary solidarity and political will for road safety in member countries of OACPs and EU, including safe infrastructure. Agenda number 3. Co-rapporters, Unity Do from the Republic of Botswana and Lucia Doris Nikolosonova. There will be presentation of the draft by the two co-rapporters, an exchange of view with Jean Todt, UN Special Envoy for Road Safety, Nineka Henry, head of the United Nations Road Safety Fund, and Elena Sentieri, Urban Policies and Sustainable Human Settlement Sector Coordinator at the UN Habitat Mozambique. On behalf of the committee, I would like to thank the two co-rapporters for the preparation of the draft report. Let me remind you that every year, 1.4 million people are killed from road crashes and millions more are injured. Half of all road traffic deaths are among the vulnerable road users such as pedestrians, cyclists, and motorcyclists. The topic of road safety is extremely pertinent to all of us, and it affects our daily life in numerous ways. We have therefore invited in our meeting today two speakers to inform the debate. Mr. Jean Todt, UN Special Envoy for Road Safety, has agreed to set the scene and open our debate today with remote intervention. Ms. John Todt was appointed by the United Nations Secretary General in April 2015 as the UN Special Envoy for Road Safety. He is the former president of Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile, FIA, and the former rally co-driver. It's a real honor to have him at our meeting today. He is the former president Following these remarks, we'll give the floor to our co-rapporteurs to briefly present the report. Then we will then hold an exchange of view with Neka Henry, head of the United Nations Red Safety Fund, and Elena Sentieri, Urban Policies and Sustainable Human Settlement Sector Coordination at the UN Habitat Mozambique. Briefly present the report. Colleagues, I do not want to keep Mr. Toll waiting any longer, so I'm giving the floor straight away to him. You have the floor, sir. Settlement Sector.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Dear colleagues, it's a pleasure for me to present the road safety report on behalf of European Parliament's co-rapporteur Lucia Duris Nicol-Solorva. Unfortunately, she can't not be here with us today. Allow me to start by thanking the ACP co-rapporteur Yundi Dao for the excellent work done so far on this report. Lucia is looking forward to fruitful collaboration on this document from now until the adoption of the report at the following joint parliamentary assembly plenary session in spring 2023. Please allow me to switch in my mother tongue in Germany and I can present the report. Die Sicherheit im Straßenverkehr ist ein wichtiges, wenn auch unterschätztes Menschenrechtsthema. Lassen Sie mich die Situation schildern. 97% aller Verkehrstoten weltweit kommen im Straßenverkehr ums Leben. Verletzungen im Straßenverkehr sind auch die häufigste Todesursache bei Menschen im Alter zwischen 5 und 29 Jahren. Obwohl die Zahl der Verkehrstoten eine globale Herausforderung darstellt, sind die Schäden ungleich verteilt. 93% der Verkehrsunfälle ereignen sich in Ländern mit niedrigem und mittleren Einkommen. Afrika zum Beispiel ist in dieser Statistik überproportional vertreten. Obwohl der afrikanische Kontinent nur 2% aller Fahrzeuge weltweit besitzt, hat er die weltweit höchste Zahl der Verkehrstoten. Die entwickelteren Länder sind jedoch weit davon entfernt, sicher zu sein. In Europa verlieren jedes Jahr immerhin noch 22.700 Menschen ihr Leben und etwa 120.000 werden schwer verletzt. Was können wir als politische Entscheidungsträger also tun, um die Straßenverkehrssicherheit zu verbessern? Zunächst einmal sollten wir uns mit langfristigen Lösungen und Nachhaltigkeiten befassen. Die WHO hat den Klimawandel zur größten Gesundheitsbedrohung des 21. Jahrhunderts und die Luftverschmutzung zum größten umweltbedingten Gesundheitsrisiko erklärt. Vor diesem Hintergrund ist es erschreckend, dass der Verkehrssektor für 24% aller CO2-Emissionen verantwortlich ist, wovon 74% auf den Straßenverkehr entfallen. Da sowohl die europäischen Länder als auch die AKP-Staaten auf den Straßenverkehr angewiesen sind, ist es dringend erforderlich, dass wir uns die Zusammenhänge zwischen dem Straßenverkehr, Atemwegserkrankungen und dem Klimawandel vor Augen führen. Die AKP-Staaten sind davon überproportional betroffen. Zu Beginn des zweiten UN-Aktionsjahrzehnts für Straßenverkehrssicherheit müssen wir unsere Macht sowohl kurz- als auch langfristig nutzen, um die Zahl der Verkehrstoten zu senken, aber auch langfristig, um sicherere, effizientere, zugänglichere und nachhaltigere Straßensysteme zu schaffen. Wir sollten auch verstärkt in qualitativ hochwertige öffentliche Verkehrsmittel und den nicht motorisierten Verkehr investieren, eine entscheidende Säule für den effizienten und sicheren Transport großer städtischer Bevölkerung. Zur Nachhaltigkeit gehört auch das Problem der Einfuhr von unsicheren, schlecht gewarteten Gebrauchtfahrzeugen. Dies ist natürlich auf einen unregulierten Markt zurückzuführen, der die Unfähigkeit der Menschen, sich sichere Fahrzeuge zu leisten, ausnutzt. Die Entwicklungspolitik sollte daher berücksichtigen, dass die Verbesserung der Lebensbedingungen auch dazu führen muss, dass die Menschen in die Lage versetzt werden, bessere Entscheidungen zu treffen. Schließlich sollten auch Investitionen in nachhaltigere Straßeninfrastrukturen Priorität haben, denn die Verbesserung der Sicherheit ist kein einmaliges Ereignis, sondern ein Prozess. Die Länder der Europäischen Union und ihre westlichen Partner sollten weiterhin mehr Unterstützung für die Finanzierung der Infrastruktur bereitstellen. Es ist von größter Bedeutung, transparente Finanzierungsmöglichkeiten für Infrastrukturprojekte zu schaffen, um die zunehmende Präsenz chinesischer Projekte der Belt and Road Initiative in den ACP-Ländern und insbesondere in Afrika auszugleichen, deren Nachhaltigkeit sowohl in finanzieller als auch in ökologischer Hinsicht oft ungewiss ist. Der Berichtsentwurf enthält auch wichtige Vorschläge, wie die Zahl der Verkehrsunfälle und Verkehrstoten kurzfristig reduziert werden kann. Die Regierungen der ACP-Staaten und der EU müssen die Zivilgesellschaft besser in die Ausarbeitung nationaler Strategien zur Straßenverkehrssicherheit einbeziehen. Sie sollten landesweite Advocacy-Kampagnen einrichten. Und natürlich ist auch die Erziehung und Befähigung junger Menschen zu proaktivem Handeln im Rahmen des globalen Aktionsplans für Straßenverkehrssicherheit 2021 bis 2030 von entscheidender Bedeutung in dieser Hinsicht. Das Problem der Rücksichtslosigkeit, zum Beispiel das Nichtanlegen von Sicherheitsgurten oder die Missachtung der Straßenverkehrsordnung, könnte auch durch eine bessere Ausbildung, eine strengere Durchsetzung des Verkehrsrechts, aber auch durch ein besseres Verständnis der psychologischen Gründe für Wut im Straßenverkehr und aggressivem Fahren angegangen werden. Schließlich unterstreicht der Bericht die dringende Notwendigkeit, eine angemessene Finanzierung von Maßnahmen zur Förderung der Straßenverkehrssicherheit und einer geeigneten Infrastruktur. Was die Frage der Finanzierung angeht, möchte ich hier aufhören, denn wir haben heute Nika Henry, die Leiterin des Verkehrssicherheitsfonds der Vereinten Nationen bei uns, die auf dieses Thema eingehen wird. Liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen, dies ist erst der Anfang unserer Diskussion über die Stärkung der parlamentarischen Solidarität und des politischen Willens zur Straßenverkehrssicherheit zwischen OACPS und EU. Ich hoffe, dass der Berichtsentwurf und die Beiträge unserer Experten heute Sie dazu anregen werden, aktiv mit einer Reihe von Änderungsanträgen zu diesem Text beizutragen. Und wir freuen uns auf einen aufschlussreichen und gehaltvollen Abschlussbericht in den kommenden Monaten, der oft übersehenen Bedeutung der Straßenverkehrssicherheit gerecht wird. Vielen herzlichen Dank.
Thank you very much, Ms. Moller. Thank you for that excellent presentation. There was a bit of misunderstanding, I guess. You know, we're supposed to give the floor to Jean Todd, who is waiting online, and so, yeah, no, not now. And so we will give Unity later on the opportunity to present as a co-rapporteur for the ACP. So let's go immediately to Jean Todd. Please, you have the floor now.
Excellencies, ladies, gentlemen, good afternoon. Can you just confirm that you hear me? Excuse me, can you tell me if you are getting me online?
Ist online und wir warten, ja. Wir warten, der ist gleich dran.
Do you hear me?
Yes, we do hear you.
They do?
Yes.
Okay, so I begin by thanking all of you for inviting me to this important meeting. The Joint Parliamentary Assembly has been involved in a long list of excellent initiatives, and I'm more than pleased that you have now added road safety to those undertakings. inviting me to this. For most people, this is an issue that seems far from their daily lives. We may all know of someone who has died or been seriously injured in a road crash. But perhaps as part of our natural survival defenses, we try to imagine it happening only to others, or being of no concerns until it directly impacts ourselves. In fact, road crashes constitute a worldwide pandemic of proportions that concern us all. Every 24 seconds, someone somewhere in the world is killed in a road crash. That total amount to nearly 110,000 fatalities every month, or 1.4 million in a year. Close to the heart of the Organization of African, Caribbean, and Pacific States, we must also recognize that 93% of those deaths and the additional tens of millions of serious injuries each year happen in low to middle income countries. Aside from the tragic financial and emotional cost to the immediate families of the victims, the collateral economic damage to many of the most affected countries, hospitalization, loss of workforce, loss of breadwinner, etc., reach as high as 5% of national GDP. In short, road crashes are a major roadblock to development. To illuminate this last point more clearly, I want to note that Africa has the highest road traffic fatality rate in the world, at 26.6 deaths per 100,000 people. I repeat, 26.6 deaths per 100,000 people. This is compared to 20 in Southeast Asia, 18 in Arab countries, and 9 in Europe. A study by the European Transport Safety Council found that there was a 37% decrease in traffic fatalities in the European Union countries over the last 10 years, and that the monetary savings in human losses by preventing road deaths was estimated at approximately 156 billion euro for the EU countries. Just imagine the further savings that can be made if we decrease fatalities. In the ACP countries, this is of course exponentially more important. In any case, there remains an unacceptable discrepancy between what is happening in the developed world compared with the developing one. Clearly, investment and rethinking are needed throughout the transportation systems of the ACP countries, and especially in and around the economic urban centers of the cities, because that is where half of the fatalities occur and urbanization is growing rapidly. Traffic congestion in cities also creates huge economic costs in wasted time, excess use of fuel, and poor health through air pollution. The good news is that we have the tool to work together to help meet our goals, including through the Global Plan for the Decade of Action, UN Road Safety Conventions, the UN Road Safety Fund, and the World Bank Global Road Safety Facilities, among others. Part of this work must be done through investment and part through agreements with an application of safety standards. For instance, one of the biggest challenges remains the lack of standardization between car technologies around the world, and especially the inferior quality cars passed on to Africa. There is a collective effort to address the used car market in Africa, both in terms of environment and safety implications. We must extend this to all of the countries of the ACP, and your efforts can only help achieve that goal. It is also for all of these reasons that road crashes have been included in the Sustainable Development Goals, such as SDG 11.2, which aims by 2030 to provide access to safe, affordable, accessible, and sustainable transport system for all. And SDG target 3.6, which aims to halve road deaths and injuries by 2030. The SDGs strive to combat inequalities within and among countries, but the divide between rich and poor countries makes unsafe roads a key obstacle to development. Here are a few strategies we must promote to achieve our goals. One, to focus on a holistic approach to road crashes so that we may solve many problems at the same time. We must see the entire ecosystem as part of the problem. Some of our solutions are simple, like reducing speed, wearing a helmet or seatbelt. Others are more complicated, like building busy roadways away from schools, which dramatically lowers fatalities. 2, by putting in place strategy for low carbon transport so that we can simultaneously improve road safety. Multimodal transport systems have shared goals and benefit not just for climate action, but also for public health, the local economy, and road safety. 3, we need to promote efficient, safe, and affordable public transport systems that are well integrated with walking and cycling. Cities with high readership of public transport have lower traffic fatality rates. Therefore, investment in public transport are also investment in road safety. Governments need urgently to create national and local development strategies to harness the economic benefits that cities can provide. Sufficient funding from the national to the local level is also essential to accelerate green and safe urban mobility. There are innovative financing schemes to help. I started today by mentioning the excellent initiative that the Joint Parliamentary Assembly has undertaken over the years. I did not mention any of these by name. Now I will. I'm thinking of the effort to upgrade the role of women in the development process, or the environmental policy development project, or promoting trade as a tool for development and measures to reinforce the commitment to respect and defend human rights and human dignity. All of these are linked in some way to our effort on strengthening parliamentary solidarity and political will for road safety. I thank you again for your time working on this important issue. I wish you a productive meeting, and you can count on my support. And I hope also we have opportunity to meet in person soon. Thank you.
In your future work in this area. And we, the ACP EU Joint Parliamentary Assembly, will try to contribute to it as much as we can. Thank you again. And now I give the floor to Unitudo from the Republic of Botswana as co-rapporteur of ACP to present her report. Thank you.
Thank you, co-chairs, for giving me the floor. And thank you, Mr. Todd, for those remarks. And of course, thank you, co-rapporteur, Mayor Ulrike Müller from the European Parliament. It is an honor for me to present this report, which report introduces a motion for resolution on the important topic of strengthening parliamentary solidarity and political will for road safety in member countries of the ACP and the EU, including road infrastructure. I'm pleased that the Bureau agreed to address this issue and to bring in the voice of parliamentarians who must work together to reinforce our commitment and political will to address road safety challenges. The critical role of parliamentarians in a matter such as this cannot be overemphasized. Parliamentarians make laws and influence policies. This issue placed before us all so that we can ultimately influence laws and policies in our respective parliaments to address the issue of road safety. In addition, parliamentarians influence public opinion by what they decide to place in the public domain for debate. Third, parliamentarians are members of regional and international groupings at which they bring matters of common importance. This report is an invitation to consider the resolution placed before it has a single goal of creating an OACP EU-wide solidarity on a matter that is of crucial importance to all of us. Honorable colleagues, despite technological advances and efforts to take preventive measures, road traffic injuries remain one of the leading causes of death worldwide, particularly among children and young people aged between 5 and 39. It is estimated that road accidents account for 1.3 million deaths and around 50 million injuries per year. It is worthy of note that the overwhelming majority in the road traffic users drivers, pedestrians, cyclists involved in accidents would have been healthy individuals. Therefore, road crashes claim the lives of healthy individuals to a large extent. There's also a link between the level of development and road safety. More than 90% of fatal crashes occur in low and middle income countries, and their victims are mainly vulnerable road users such as occupants of non-roadworthy vehicles, users of poorly surfaced roads, users of poorly maintained roads, pedestrians, cyclists, and motorcyclists, and not infrequently uninsured drivers. Road safety has been and is being recognized as a serious public health issue by the international community. The UN 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the Paris Agreement reflect this concern. Road safety has indeed become one of the World Health Organization, that's WHO priorities, with the SDG 3.6 aiming to halve the number of road traffic deaths and injuries by 2030. Colleagues, Africa is currently experiencing the highest per capita rate of road fatalities in the world. The WHO estimates the rate of road traffic deaths to be 2.4 and perhaps 2.6, as Red Todd has just told us, per 100,000 people in Africa, in comparison to 18.5 in Asia and 10.3 in Europe. The problem is set to worsen, we are told, according to projections by WHO. Road fatalities in sub-Saharan Africa will increase by 111% from approximately 243,000 in 2015 to 514,000 in 2030. Traffic accidents are more than just a health issue. The socioeconomic impact of road traffic accidents are numerous, and they include death, health, financial, psychological, to name but a few. Recognizing the gravity of road safety challenges in Africa, heads of state and government adopted the Africa Road Safety Action Plan of 2011 to 2020 and the Africa Road Safety Charter that became part of the building block for establishing a decade of action for road safety 2011 to 2020 by the United Nations. Signatories states have committed to the obligation of the Charter, which seeks to accelerate the implementation of national, regional, and continental road safety programs, contribute to the coordination of road safety across Africa, the African continent, and facilitate the formulation of comprehensive road safety policies at national levels. The Caribbean is characterized as one of the most urbanized regions based on its economic growth, increase the number of cars and motorbike users. This leads to high levels of motorization, resulting in greater risks, including increased levels of pollution and congestion in cities, which affect lives and society. The Pacific region has a lower regional rate of 8 deaths per 100,000. The region reports that half of fatal injuries are road traffic related, caused by motorization. Studies have also indicated vehicle types as a cause of road traffic injuries, citing increased risks of crashes involving buses and open commercial vehicles compared to private cars. Despite the specificities of the situation at national levels, members of the OACP face common road safety challenges, such as importation of unsafe, poorly maintained, and variable use secondhand vehicles, insufficient training and inappropriate behavior of road users, such as texting while driving and driving under the influence of drugs and alcohol, recklessness, such as the absence of or non-use of seat belts, absence of child seats, non-use of helmets by motorists and cyclists, and law enforcement of traffic rules. In addition, there are the problems of unsafe road infrastructure and limited and inadequate insurance. The complexity of road safety issues calls for a multidimensional and a holistic approach, including a coherent, a united OACP EU-wide strategy. It is hoped that this issue can find a place for consideration at all fora of the OACP and EU, including the coming summit and the summit-related workshops as appropriate. This engagement should provide a political momentum needed to ensure debate, opinion leadership, legislation review, policy review, implementation of international commitments as we engage here at our respective parliaments and at our respective parliament. The resolution before us is a preliminary one that calls for not only input, but will also calls for strong debate and strong recommendations for action both at OACP and EU level, but sensitizes leaders and our assemblies to prioritize road safety and have it at the center of our work. I thank you, co-chairs. I thank you, co-rapporteur.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dow, for that excellent presentation. We will now move on to our exchange of views on the subject. And I would like to give the floor to Mrs. Neka Henry, head of the United Nations Road Safety Fund. Ms. Henry has served as head of the United Nations Road Safety Fund Secretariat since the 1st of May 2021. She joined the fund from International Trade Center, the joint agency of the United Nations and World Trade Organization, where she served since 2013 as a senior advisor to ICT Executive Director. It's a real pleasure, Ms. Henry, to have you in the meeting room with us. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, President Chair, President, thank you. Colleagues, thank you so much for inviting us from the United Nations Road Safety Fund to join this exchange of views on this very important topic of road safety. We've heard the previous speakers set the scene in terms of some of the causes of the problem around road safety, some of the solutions and interventions that can work. We've also heard from MEP Dow about why parliamentarians are in an important role to support a response on this issue. With the few minutes that I have with you on this podium, I would like to just maybe give some information about what has been the UN response to this issue so far, and to give some suggestions in terms of practical ways that the parliamentarians can actually support the UN's efforts in addressing this issue at the national, regional, and global level. First, to say that I commend you all very much on this very comprehensive yet targeted report. As you seek its adoption over the next coming months, I also encourage you to consider practical ways in which you will individually and collectively help to realize some of the important recommendations that are listed in the draft report. And I say this because despite increasing political commitments that we have coming about on road safety, thankfully, and some of these at the global level include 3 ministerial conferences on road safety. We've just had this year a UN General Assembly high-level meeting on improving road safety, and also several related UN resolutions. Despite these commitments, the numbers of road traffic deaths and injuries are not improving. As far as political commitments go, we have, as you've heard from both rapporteurs, the first decade of action for road safety, which started from 2010 and ended in 2020. We're now in the second decade of action for road safety from 2021 to 2030. And this first decade of action from 2010 to 20, it actually did secure important progress, thankfully. The global community, for example, recognized that it was necessary to prioritize road safety as a sustainable development issue and as an international development assistance priority. And as a result, 193 UN member states agreed to give road safety pride of place in the 2030 development agenda, with not one, but actually 2 sustainable development goal targets on improving road safety. And you'll find these in 3.6 and 11.2 of the SDG agenda. At the start of the first decade of action, the global road death toll was estimated at about 1.2 million people losing their lives every single year across the globe. Today, as you've heard from previous speakers, the estimates are now running around 1.35 million lives lost annually across the globe. It doesn't take a genius or a mathematician to see that we're going in the wrong direction. It is not so surprising then that towards the end of the first decade of action, UN member states, thanks in large part to the advocacy of Mr. Jean Todt, UN Special Envoy, the UN member states recognized that saying that we all wanted safer roads in developing countries was never going to be enough. Targeted action was required to deploy know-how, to deploy financing, standards, best practices, technology to developing countries where the problem was most prevalent. As a result, with 2 years remaining on the first decade of action, the UN General Assembly established the United Nations Road Safety Fund, the secretariat for which I head and based in Geneva. As you can all imagine, having been established 2 years before the end of the decade, and having been established 2 years before a very, very unprecedented global health pandemic, and already in a very, let's say, crowded development landscape, to say that the expectations on the fund have been enormous and highly ambitious would be an understatement. Nonetheless, the fund has been working hard, smart, and fast to deliver on these expectations. Equipped with only a 4-staffed secretariat, keeping capacity building support in the range of around 300,000 to 500,000 per project, and applying multi-country and regional project approaches, it has put the fund in a position to support over 50 countries to improve their road safety performance in the last 4 years. Multi-stakeholder partnerships to design and implement projects are also a crucial ingredient to the progress made so far by the fund. And that's why I'm so pleased that Elena from UN Habitat is here, because UN Habitat is one of many, many partners that are part of the fund's global partnership to improve road safety. Without the partnership, it would not work. Our implementing partners include 14 UN agencies, and every month we have a new agency which is expressing interest to join the effort to tackle road safety. The Global Alliance of NGOs for Road Safety, which is 100+ strong NGOs working on road safety across the globe. Industry associations, international finance institutions are just among of the few partners that are implementing and designing the projects that the fund is delivering in developing countries. Together, they help us to ensure the fund's ability to respond to the wide range of requests for road safety support and capacity building from developing countries. So by way of example, UN Road Safety Fund has mapped road crash hotspots and road safety infrastructure in Zambia, advanced safe and green street design in Ethiopia, improved road crash and post-crash care data collection in Côte d'Ivoire and Senegal, strengthened legal frameworks in Arab countries, supported Azerbaijan with legislation to help reduce the time interval between a crash and the provision of first professional emergency care. We've built capacity for improved urban planning and sustainable transportation to keep children safer in Paraguay, Philippines, and South Africa. We're also supporting Lao PDR with driver testing and licensing reform, and have helped increase enforcement of speed limits, use of safety devices, and other road traffic rules in Brazil, Jordan, Tunisia, and the Philippines. Recently approved projects in Thailand, Latin America, Nepal, and other parts of the world will support an even wider range of needs, from motor vehicle insurance regulation to motorcycle helmet standardization and use. In the 4 years, we've already started to see some progress and some countries reporting a reduction in deaths and crashes and injuries. We've seen this in the case of Brazil, where we worked on speed management enforcement in the state of Para, where in that state, we had a decrease in the rate of traffic deaths per 100,000 inhabitants, moving from 17.3 in 2019 to 15.64 in 2020. We've seen in Ethiopia, where the government is implementing and rolling out over 3,000 kilometers of walking and cycling lanes. In West Africa, the fund's support, thanks to the United Nations Environment Programme's leadership, also part of the partnership, UNEP, With their support, the fund was able to work together in the 15 ECOWAS member states for the adoption of the first time ever used vehicle importation standards. So this project is actually called Safer, Cleaner Used Vehicles, and this is exactly what the fund is implementing in West Africa. And in a second phase of support, we're now moving this to Asia and eventually to Latin America. These lasting changes in countries' road infrastructure and road safety culture is a legacy that will substantially improve road safety, not just for a handful, but for millions of citizens and tourists alike. So the fund has been busy putting action into the decade of action, but we need your support and your engagement to continue the journey. Given that there are 125 low and middle income countries demanding our support and that we're already supporting 50, you can do the math to see that there's still a long journey to go. The demands from governments in low and middle income countries are wholly undermet. And this is largely because of the fund's current level of capitalization, which today stands at 22 million. Each year, we receive between 60 to 100 requests for support. And each year, we're able to respond positively to only about 10 or 12 of the highest ranking proposals. And these are ranked by independent road safety experts. So you can also do the math to see that there's a whole portfolio of demands that are unmet. And even for those who we do support, they're coming back for more. But it's not all gloomy. We do have some supporters by way of a handful of governments who have taken on board the 3 key lessons that we've learned from the first decade of action, which are, to make road safety an international development assistance priority, to give importance to capacity building because it doesn't happen by magic, and also to make financing available to ensure the support that's needed. Donations and pledges have so far been very generously made by Bahrain, Croatia, Cyprus, the European Commission, France, Hungary, Luxembourg, Mauritius, Monaco, Nigeria, Russia, before 2022, and Slovakia. That's a whopping 12 out of the 193 UN member states that committed to supporting the work and the mandate of the fund just 4 years ago. Admittedly, yes, the development aid landscape, as it always does, has changed significantly since then. However, like every country, these 12 donors are also affected by road deaths. They're also affected by road crashes and injuries, some a lot more than others. I speak of Mauritius and Nigeria, for example, which are from 2 of our low and middle income country donors. They're also affected, these 12 countries, by the old and the new global challenge, which are facing all the countries. The difference, I think, is that 1 or more well-positioned advocates in those 12 countries has realized that if everyone shares the responsibility for action to the extent that is within their means, partnering to have road traffic deaths and injuries by 2030 is actually a sustainable development target that can be achieved and that is affordable. The alternative would be to accept another decade of action, a 3rd decade of action. The alternative would be to accept a road death toll of unimaginable proportions, both of which, quite frankly, we should all consider as unacceptable. Because we already know that to close the gap on road deaths is a matter of more governments pitching in to help deploy the things that we already know works to places where we already know need it to work the most. So, where do you come in? As parliamentarians and advocates for a better world, you have a unique and a critical role to play to help move beyond political rhetoric to making a real difference. Additional, we heard some of the things that you're already doing in other spheres, and in road safety, there's also space for that. Allow me to highlight 3 practical ways already mentioned in the committee's draft report where your support will be invaluable. First, advocate for road safety as an international development assistance priority. Paragraph 4 of the draft report mentions advocacy initiatives, road safety campaigns, and regular reporting on implementation as ways of increasing visibility and prioritization. Despite being in the 2030 Development Agenda under SDGs 3 and 11, there are still far too many foreign affairs and development cooperation ministers who have yet to acknowledge road safety as an international development assistance priority. Or these foreign ministers or development cooperation ministers, they view it, road safety, as a standalone issue set apart from the more popular development priorities, such as climate action, SDG 13, children's education, SDG 4, economic development, SDG 8. But nothing could be further from the truth. Improving road safety challenges can in fact be a cost-effective way, as we've heard also from co-rapporteur Muller, it can be a cost-effective way of gaining low-hanging fruits for other development priorities. For instance, led by the UN Environment Programme and UN Economic Commission for Europe, you've heard me mention the project on safer and cleaner used vehicles. This project about vehicle safety standards for used vehicles in West Africa also has strong climate dividends, specifically related to clean air quality, decarbonization, and lower emissions. In South Africa and Zambia, led by UNICEF and UNDP, the fund's child-friendly projects have built the capacity of urban planners and government officials to improve safe road design and infrastructure in and around school zones, which means that children have safer access to gaining education. And while safer streets means saving lives, it's a mantra, safe streets save lives, the mantra, better roads, better business, also rings true. There's a Measuring Streets report, very interesting. It's revealed compelling facts and linkages. It says that there is a link that exists, a verifiable link that exists between, on the one hand, higher retail sales, higher property values, increased consumer engagement, a rise in employment, and on the other hand, improving road design for pedestrian and cyclist safety, introducing bike lanes, crosswalks, sidewalks, tree-lined medians, simplifying intersections, and lowering speed limits. So they see this connection between the two. Better streets, better business. And I mean, you don't need a report to tell you that. As a consumer, who wouldn't like to take a stroll and do some shopping on a very beautiful street that feels safe, that the kids can run on the sidewalk because it's wide enough? You know, that you can stop and see some trees in the corner, that you have a crosswalk when you need to get to the other side. It's really not rocket science. It's how we behave. We gravitate towards that as citizens, but also as tourists. That's the kind of city you want to visit. Just this morning, I did a tweet of the street, Avenue de Marginal. It's such a great example of sharing the road, which is this concept that you can cycle, you can take the bus, you can ride, you can run, you can swim, you can drive, all on the same piece of road, but it's done safely because everyone has their part to share the road. It's a great example. So I ask you to consider this as when you go back to your respective homes. There is a link between supporting road safety and supporting other development agendas. It's not one or the other. So as influential leaders from some of the most affected countries, as well as from some of the most affluent donor countries, I call on you to share these important sustainable development interconnections with the decision makers at home. Road safety is that low-hanging fruit hiding in plain sight, which if more development actors understood and supported, we would be able to prevent millions of road deaths millions of road crash injuries, while also helping to realize sustainable development benefits across the other 17 SDGs. So that's the first one, advocating for an international development assistance, road safety as an international development assistance priority, simple enough. The second area for your support, mentioned in paragraph 3 of the report, is to advocate for the need for capacity building on road safety in your member countries and in your partner countries, especially where we see and we know that the road safety performance is falling below the regional or the global average. We've already heard some of the numbers from the previous speakers. We have a big gap between EU, for example, and ACP countries, average of around 8 in the EU, average of around somewhere 15, 26 per 100,000 deaths. So it's a huge gap. But even looking within our own regions, taking Africa, for example, the African rate death toll per 100,000 inhabitants, it's 26. We heard Mr. Todd say it. But even within that, we have countries like Mozambique, Rwanda, Tanzania, and Togo, which are far above that average at 31 or more deaths per 100,000. These are some of the countries that the fund is supporting. We are channeling support to where it's needed most. I'm happy again Elena is here because she will be speaking a little bit more in detail about what we're doing in Mozambique to work on this issue. A third area of action, a third area for your support is mentioned in paragraphs 2 and 3, and it is to advocate for road safety financing, both at domestic level at home, but also to the UN Road Safety Fund. As leaders in your respective countries, you do have the influence to lobby ministers of finance, and the secret is out because MEP Dow already explained that this is sort of the influence that you have. So you do have this influence to lobby the ministers of finance and ministers of health and transport, as well as the ministers of foreign affairs and development cooperation, to set aside financing for road safety at home and in partner countries. I think I've already made the case to you as to why your governments should consider making a contribution to the fund. And should you wish to learn more, I am very happy to chat with you during the session or after. I also brought a couple of these flyers so you can see in 2 pages what the fund has been up to and what we're about that you can take back with you. And so with this, with these 3 practical ways in how you can support, I hope that some or one of them have resonated with you. And thank you again for the opportunity. And I wish you a good continuation of discussions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Henry, for that very important intervention where you have, in fact, informed as well as reminded us of the critical role that we are supposed to, as parliamentarians, to play. And again, the 3 practical ways that you have suggested seeking our support are very important and well taken. Thank you again very much for that. Now I am giving the floor to Elena Sentieri, Urban Policy and Sustainable Human Settlement Sector Coordinator at the UN Habitat Mozambique. Please have the floor.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure being here. I'm Elena Sentieri. As it was presented, I'm the Urban Policies and Sustainable Human Settlements Sector Coordinator at UN Habitat Country Office in Mozambique. And I'm here today in representation of both our country office in Mozambique and also the global urban mobility team in our headquarters that is also managing this project and other projects funded by the UN Road Safety Fund. So I will only have 5 minutes. So the idea is to showcase us, to show which is the work that we're doing together. UN Habitat, only to give a short introduction, UN Habitat is the United Nations Program for Human Settlements, mandated by the UN General Assembly to promote socially and environmentally sustainable towns and cities. In this sense, UN Habitat is committed to improve road safety while promoting also walkable cities with better facilities for walking and cycling, combined with affordable and safe public transport. This also obviously in order to make cities more inclusive and accessible to all. So we all know that active mobility or non-motorized transport is healthy, is pollution-free. So also it's the best way also for climate change mitigation. But poor walking and cycling infrastructures in cities prevent this practice. Next slide, please. To date, UN Habitat has been supported by the UN Road Safety Fund in the delivery of 3 projects that I will briefly present you. So we have a first project that is concluded, already mentioned by our colleague, Messenry. This project took place in Ethiopia and resulted in the Addis Ababa non-motorized transport city level, policies at city level, national level. And the second and third project, I'm going to present them now, and they are regional project. Next slide, please. So as mentioned also by Mr. Jean Todt, beforehand, the road safety in Africa is concerning with a very high fatality rate. I won't repeat the rate because he already mentioned that. But we also know that children are among the most affected, and also Africa has the higher rate, mortality rate of cyclists and pedestrians, accounting with 44% of the total deaths in road accidents. So this guided us, next please, they guided us in the conception of the project Reclaiming Streets for Pedestrians and Cyclists. That is a regional project implemented in Mozambique, but also in other countries like Kenya, Ethiopia, Rwanda, and Guinea. Next, please. So the project has various objectives, specific objectives, but the main objective is to support and increase road safety in African cities, especially for pedestrians and cyclists, also to improve and promote also active mobility by supporting government efforts in developing policies, and also by implementing actions at local level to design safe roads and also promote in general safe roads and safe standards, and create adequate public spaces. Next, please. So here we have a bit the explanation of the 4 big outcomes we have that, as I was explaining, are implemented at regional level. Some of them are specifically implemented in Mozambique. With the first one, we are trying to scale up and improve good street designs. We are closely working with local authorities to develop also knowledge materials. You can see there are some cover pages. For example, in Kenya, we co-developed with ITDP, that are our implementing partners, a street design manual. In Addis, we also co-develop a cycle network plan. Next, please. Regarding outcome 2, that also is also implementing in Mozambique, we are trying to improving road safety frameworks and also improving commitment to road safety. Specifically, we are we are working in Kenya also to develop and review some non-motorized transport policies and standards. We also have already hosted a Minecraft workshop that I will explain later regarding our approach. And also in Mozambique, we engaged in quite some activities, also in Maputo city, that I will explain after that. Next, please. So here we have also the last 2 outcomes. Only to have an idea, we implemented a 3-day workshop on walking and cycling in the African context, with the view of ensuring commitment and promoting commitment to improve conditions for pedestrians and cyclists. And also we are collaborating closely with the African Development Bank and other development banks to ensure that active mobility or non-motorized transport this is mainstreamed into their project and grants. Next, please. So this idea of what we did so far, we did various activities like tactical urbanism or placemaking that are activities where we usually close some parts of the roads that are meant for cars in order to give back the city to pedestrians and cyclists, and also to promote and awareness. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so sorry. I was talking like with Ms. Henry, but I'm directly coming from an intervention of placemaking yesterday. We're in Matola city, that is part of the Maputo metropolitan area, and we work with children. I have also some pictures that I can show you later. We closed the street, but it's a very trafficked street, and we invited skaters, professional skaters that also involved people from the neighborhoods to skate and to learn how to skate and to go with rollerblades. And then we involve them even to paint the street in order with design standards that decrease roads, that increase road safety because decrease the velocity of cars. And also we did open air theater regarding urban mobility and challenges regarding public transport service and so on. We also implemented some trainings on inclusive street standard with more than 400 people in all these countries, including also Mozambique. And also we really believe on the city-to-city exchange and also South-South cooperation. So we implemented various activities regarding this. Also, as well on Friday, we invited the mayor from Quilimane, that is the city where we are focusing the intervention, to Maputo, in order to exchange experience with all the mayors here, because Quilimane, it's a very interesting city with a very high number of bicycles per capita. And also Professor Carlos Serra was also there in order to promote also active mobility as a sustainable means of transport. Next, please. So only to be very short. So all this is part of our innovative approach. What we did is also to place children's voices and rights at the heart of urban mobility planning and action. We also invited children, for example, in this very high-level meeting, to declare some poems regarding very critical regarding their needs of being granted with safe streets. And also we've organized collaborative street design challenges using the computer game Minecraft. This is an example in Kenya, where we involve children and also people from the community to redesign their streets and their public spaces in a safer way through the computer Minecraft. We train them for that. Next, please. So I already explained this, I can be short. This is the case study from Mozambique. We are focused, we are working with the Ministry of Transport and Communication and also with Quilimane municipality. And now we are also starting working a bit and involving in Maputo metropolitan area. I already explained a bit what we did, but only to implement, we also did some participatory murals with awareness raising messages with including people and activists and young people, and also art, paintings, all of this with the general objective of promoting and raise awareness both of decision makers and of the general public on the need of active mobility and also to increase road safety. Yeah, only to conclude, we are right now in the middle of the Maputo Sustainable Mobility Week. That is a 3 weeks initiative It's a multi-partners initiative led by the Maputo Metropolitan Transport Agency and also the 4 municipalities. And it's a very important moment also to promote road safety and active mobility. Next, please. So these are only some pictures from the results from yesterday, actually, and from Friday. So it's only a very fresh example of this. Next, please. Yeah, so I will conclude only to briefly talk about this regional project that we also involve Mozambique, that is led by our urban mobility team. So for even also more information, I can put you in contact with them, but it will be in collaboration with UNEP, UNEC, among others. Next, please. And it's a project that starts with from the premises that there is a great, it's very important to exchange experience as lessons learned from cities to cities in order to inspire practices among each other. So I think that with this, I can conclude, and thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sentieri, for that very informative remarks that you have made as regards to the excellent work that UN Habitat is doing regarding the road safety. And thank you again for that important remarks and contributions. Now I'm opening the floor to the members for their questions and comments on the topic at hand. You have the floor. Cameroon, you have the floor, please.
Merci, co-président, chers honorables parlementaires. À la suite de tous les exposés de tout à l'heure, je voudrais m'associer à ce que le co-rapporteur a dit pour supporter effectivement cette motion sur la sécurité routière, surtout en Afrique, où il y a des problèmes. Et je parle du cas particulier du Cameroun, qui, il y a quelques années, partait de 16 500 morts par an et des pertes de centaines de milliards dans les dégâts causés par les accidents de la route. Et nous saisissons cette occasion pour saluer l'accompagnement constant des institutions internationales. C'est l'occasion pour nous d'ailleurs de saluer l'intervention de M. Jean Todt, qui nous a mis dans une plateforme d'amélioration des conditions de sécurité routière. Et comme c'est un partage d'expériences entre parlementaires pour plus de solidarité, je voudrais soulever quelques points qui pourraient nous intéresser tous ensemble. Et sans être exhaustif, il faudrait réfléchir sur les conditions d'importation des voitures d'occasion qui, surtout en Afrique, constituent de véritables dangers. Qu'est-ce que nos partenaires européens peuvent faire? Qu'est-ce que nous, en tant que législateurs, on peut faire aussi? On peut faire une réflexion commune là-dessus. Au niveau de mon pays, nous avons un réseau de parlementaires sur la sécurité routière. Pourquoi est-ce qu'on ne pouvait pas extendre ça au pays, aux parlementaires ici présents, de manière à aboutir à une réflexion commune? Donc, ce réseau-là permettrait d'offrir une plateforme à tous les parlementaires ici présents pour mener une réflexion progressive sur la sécurité routière. Maintenant, il faudrait développer les technologies de l'information et des communications, nouveaux outils aujourd'hui, et ça, l'expérience est faite au Cameroun, et à travers des caméras de surveillance, à travers le port de ceintures de sécurité, à travers les radars, et ça a permis de diminuer drastiquement. Je parlais de 16 500 par an. On est arrivé en fin 2021 à 623 000 morts par an au Cameroun. Ça veut dire qu'on est parti de milliers de morts à près d'une centaine de morts par an. Donc, maintenant, tous ces efforts conjugués doivent nécessairement prendre en compte le développement des transports de masse. Chacun a son véhicule, mais rien n'est fait pour le transport de masse dans les grandes villes et dans les grandes agglomérations. Et ça fait un souci, justement, dans nos pays. Maintenant, la législation doit être forte. Certes, il y a des législations nationales, mais les appliquer ferait justement limiter ce genre de danger que nous courons à travers nos transports routiers. Et l'application stricte des lois est comment est-ce qu'on pourrait dire, le garant justement de la sécurisation sur nos routes. Tant qu'on n'a pas justement une justice bien faite, tant qu'on n'a pas des policiers, des gendarmes formés à cet effet-là, nous allons toujours courir vers le risque de nos morts. Voilà quelques propositions que je voudrais soumettre à la solidarité parlementaire. Je vous remercie de votre aimable attention.
Thank you, Cameroon, for that remarks that you have made, and I really want to congratulate you as well here on the results that you have obtained as a result of the interventions have been made, and we look forward for a better result. Thank you again. Rwanda, you have the floor, please.
Merci pour la parole. Je voudrais d'abord remercier les présentateurs pour les contributions de très grande qualité. Je voudrais revenir sur cette solidarité entre les parlementaires au niveau du développement des actions concrètes pour le développement de la sécurité routière. Et je voudrais souligner qu'il me semble que dans certains pays, il y a de bonnes pratiques. Et j'ai l'impression que ces bonnes pratiques ne sont pas suffisamment partagées. Et c'est là que je voudrais proposer qu'on redynamise les actions des groupes d'amitié entre les parlements, entre parlementaires, pour mettre sur l'agenda de ce que ces groupes d'amitié font, l'échange de bonnes pratiques en matière de développement de la sécurité routière. Qu'est-ce que dans un pays on fait? Qu'est-ce qu'on peut apprendre des actions développées dans un pays ou dans un autre? Et donc, ce que je souligne ici, c'est le rôle qui est possible entre les groupes d'amitié. Et ça peut être une voie pour cette solidarité qui est envisageable, qui peut être possible. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Rwanda. And now I give the floor to EP member, Mr. Locke. Yes, please have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, for the floor. And while I was listening to you, there was popping up in my mind something that I experienced back in Germany, because every year in the 8 o'clock news, there is once for 30 seconds, they announce the death tolls in traffic for 1 year, and then the story is over again. But when we discuss to introduce a general speed limit on our motorways, then we have the hottest debate in Germany ever. So, I mean, this is kind of crazy, but this is just an anecdote that just popped up in my mind. In general, I never be a fan of starting with financial issues. So like, because it's every time very easy just to come around the corner and say, let's put on tons of money and then the problem is solved. And you know, every policy area is saying, well, we need much more money on this and this and that. And of course, we know that there is kind of shortages of money and we have to like allocate it in a correct way. But still, of course, when I talk about financials, I would also for the S&D group in the European Parliament flag out 3 areas where we need to invest, but also what I like very much is this smart approach that was presented here, especially from the speakers from the United Nations. And well, of course, we have to go for education, sustainable infrastructure, and research and development. And when we come for education, of course, also when I reconnect this to my region, I'm coming from, at least from German standards, from a rural area. So there are streets that are kind of curvy and you cannot really see who is far ahead and stuff like that. And we really have a high amount of people being dead because of car accidents, because they cannot really measure how their vehicle is operating, and they have too much courage and they think they can manage everything. And of course, if there is education implemented, that would of course need bring us much forward. So nationwide road safety campaigns, advocacy initiatives, I think this is something that is very important. And also coming back to what I just said about the lack of money, you were just talking about this issue of including young people into designing our roads and doing it with Minecraft. So this is kind of a very good policy approach from my point of view, to be smart on that and don't use just tons of money, but try to come around with some very low profile approaches that doesn't cost millions of dollars or euros or whatsoever, and then have a concrete effect on road safety. And of course, the environmental issue is something that we need to consider, and this is of course included in the report. It says already that this 24% of global CO2 emission is related, and of course, and I think we are in that process to have this sustainable mobility, quality public and non-motorized transport. This, of course, we need to have a lot of money to invest, but this is kind of the way we just started to go, and maybe it's most probably a stony way, but for me, from my point of view, it's the only way we can go, because if we want to connect road safety with the environment, we have to think in these issues. And my last point I want to flag out is the R&D issues, so research and development. Because we know every policy area, and especially also mobility and transport, are constantly evolving, changing. There is something going on. So it's not like we finished it in one way and then we're done forever. So it's an ongoing process. And you were also talking about this reduction of road deaths by 50%. And also here, I would like to point out that we don't need to forget about civil society organizations, because there's so much knowledge and so many practical things they can put into this policy process. We need really to include them into this policy making. And with this, I would like to conclude. So these are the financial, educational, environmental, and R&D, which are also represented already in the report, but they are really important, and we really should go that way. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that intervention, Mr. Luke. And now I give the floor to Malawi. Please have the floor.
Okay. Thank you very much, our co-chairs. I should also thank the co-rapporteurs for coming up with this very important I would also like to thank the co-rapporteurs for this very important report that has been shared with the committee. I would also like to thank the presenters, the three presenters, for these very enlightening presentations, but also for the practical solutions that have been kindly shared with us. Something of interest that has come to my mind, all those presentations, including the report from the co-rapporteur, they are highlighting two common factors which are contributing to these high numbers of road traffic accidents. And these are the quality of our roads and the state of the motor vehicles that are using these roads. And it is on those two factors that I would like to offer my suggestions as I draw from the experience from my country, Malawi. Co-chair, the link between the ACP EU partnership agreement, particularly the components to do with trade development and economic development and road safety, cannot be avoided. It is owing to the poor state of our roads in the ACP, particularly in Africa. That's why, even though the number of vehicles we own, they are less than 2% of the total global motor vehicles, but we are still on record as having the highest number of road traffic accidents. It's because of the nature of our roads. And it is because of the nature of the motor vehicles which are using these roads. These are second-hand motor vehicles. Co-chair, the reason we have poor and bad roads, it's because of lack of resources, because we don't have adequate resources to invest in better, modern, accommodating roads, roads that would allow pedestrians, cyclists, as well as motorists to use these roads in harmony without causing accidents. And the reason our people are finding recourse to used motor vehicles, it's because of affordability. And as when we try to discourage the practice of owning second-hand motor vehicles, co-chair and honorable members, we should realize this is a catch-22. We can't be advocating for abandonment of use of second-hand motor vehicles in communities and societies where affordability to newer vehicles is unattainable. The point I want to raise, honorable co-chair, is that it's time that this agreement we have with the EU started focusing seriously on infrastructure development, particularly in the transportation sector. Every time I have a chance to visit Europe, particularly in Germany, I always get wowed when I see those huge autobahns giving you so much space as you drive. But the same cannot be said in a lot of our African states. As much as we would want to make our roads much better, but we don't have adequate resources. And my appeal is, it's time the EU would consider increasing the grants, particularly in the transportation sector, so that we have improved road network infrastructure that will start to help us address the road safety accident, the road traffic accidents. Another appeal is to scale up and scale out the trade development agreement. If a lot of our people are able to produce and those produce are able to be exported to the West Western markets. What it means, we'll be placing a lot of disposable income in the hands of our people, and that would enable them to afford better motor vehicles. So unless and until we realize the link between the ACP EU agreement and the road safety, we'll continue to have these challenges. At the time we have realized to see this link and we have started addressing the challenges, we'll be sorting out a number of problems. Number one, we'll be seeing a reduction in the road traffic accidents in our respective regions. We'll be seeing a reduction of urbanization in our respective regions, which would also consequently reduce the number of the road accidents. We'll be lowering the levels of poverty, and it is poverty that keeps on driving people from their rural setups into the urban communities. And with a number of challenges, these are the people that first get crushed on our roads. And finally, we'll be able to start addressing the issues of environmental pollution. When we have better roads, when we have got better vehicles using our roads. And this is my appeal. I thank you, Co-Chair.
Thank you very much, Malawi, for that intervention. Now I would like to inform you that we have got 3 more speakers who will make intervention. And for the sake of time, we have closed the list of speakers to that 3 numbers that have been already recognized. And because we have also some other interventions to be made from the speakers, and as well as the concluding remarks from the reporters, etc. So please, I seek your cooperation. And now I give the floor for Mauritania, sorry.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je remercie les présentateurs pour la clarté de leur exposé, qui nous ont édifiés sur la gravité du phénomène de l'insécurité routière. Notre rôle en tant que parlementaires est d'influencer nos décideurs politiques pour qu'ils prennent conscience de la gravité, suffisamment conscience de la gravité de l'importance et de la prise en compte de la sécurité routière dans leur politique publique. L'insécurité routière est un véritable problème de santé publique. On vient de constater qu'il y a 1,3 million de décès par an. Et surtout qui vise une frange de jeunes qui produisent pour le développement du pays. Donc, c'est extrêmement grave. Nos pays ne peuvent pas seuls faire grand-chose face à l'ampleur de ce problème. C'est pourquoi nous demandons à nos partenaires européens de s'impliquer plus pour faire face à ce phénomène. Nos infrastructures sont souvent vétustes, elles sont mal faites dès le départ et elles subissent aussi les aléas des changements climatiques. Elles sont tout le temps, il y a un grand effort d'entretien qui n'est pas souvent donné à nos pays. Et nous constatons aussi d'autre part que les routes financées par l'Union européenne, grâce au suivi qu'il effectue, sont meilleures à celles qui sont financées par nos propres moyens. Parce que souvent, elles sont très, très mal faites. Il n'y a pas de suivi, de qualité. Donc, c'est pourquoi nous voulons que, et même ceux qui sont financés par les pays du Golfe, subissent les mêmes sorts. Il n'y a pas de suivi pour s'assurer de la qualité et pour s'assurer de la durée de vie des infrastructures qui sont mises en place. Donc, nous voulons une implication, une sensibilisation, surtout pour lutter contre ce phénomène de corruption qui vraiment handicape toute évolution dans ce sens. Dans mon pays, nous venons de créer encore dédié à la sécurité routière. Depuis 3-4 ans, c'est des jeunes qui quand même qui ont pu fournir un effort, mais on constate qu'ils ne sont pas suffisamment préparés, qu'il manque un renforcement de capacité pour qu'ils vraiment jouent le rôle qui leur est assigné. Et nous voulons éventuellement qu'il y ait un appui pour ce corps nouvellement créé, surtout en ce qui concerne sa formation et pour qu'il joue le rôle que nous voulons. Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Mauritania. And now I give the floor to Gambia, the Gambia.
Thank you so much, Mr. President, co-chair. As I alluded the last time when I intervened, was to indicate. Thank you. As I indicated the last time when I was intervening on the road safety issue by the Gambia, I have highlighted the statistic of road accidents that happen in the Gambia on a yearly basis that has been in the increase from 2020 and 2021. First, I will thank the co-rapporteurs for this resolution and also the presenters for giving us a detailed explanation of, the road safety issues within the world, and more especially in ACP countries and the EU. I'll be specific. You realize that I am new in the ACP EU. The former head of delegation has been the one involved in the debates of such issues. But because of the presentation and the resolution, the importance, I just wanted to highlight a few things and to be specific with the Gambia, that is my country. With road safety, I think in the Gambia, we have taken the direction to create a road safety strategy that is going to look at road safety within the Gambia. But we also have noted critical issues that have been missing in the Gambia for quite a number of times. And this has been the problem with road safety in the Gambia. That is, we don't have a road safety mechanism system that is going to look at the leadership component and then the coordination of, road safety within the Gambia. We have not been investing more on road safety, and I think it's important. This is not peculiar about the Gambia alone, and most of the African countries as well. Investing more on road safety is important, using the national budget, which is also very important. But as well, we know that is not sufficient. We will need more supports to be able to do that. Electronic database to be able to monitor fatalities when they happen within Africa. This is also something that we have been missing as a country. And currently we have highlighted that as an important component that we'll be working on to be able to do that. Because once you cannot know the amount of fatalities that happen with your country, and that is a very serious problem that we have been facing as a country. Weak legislations have also been a problem, and currently we have taken the direction to be able to look at the regulations that we have as a country, to be able to regulate the speeding and drink driving, using mobile phones while driving. These are all problems within the system, and I think road safety component has to capture all that. Road safety knowledge as well by the users is also another important step that as a country we will take. One is to inculcate the issue of to inculcate in the curriculum for school children to be able to learn road safety from at a very early age, so that when they grow, they will be able to protect themselves while crossing the road, and also when they are driving as well. These are very important components that as a country we take, and then we wanted to make sure that we tackle the issue of road safety, road accidents in our country as well. Honorable Chair, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, the Gambia, and I wish you success in the attempts that you are making to improve the situation. And now I give the floor to Sierra Leone. Please have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President and co-chair of this program. We are happy that we have data in front of us telling us about the seriousness of this particular road safety. We have listened to the presenters. I want to thank you very much. And I think it will be good for all of us to support this motion in the interest of saving humanity. There are certain things that we need to do. Talk about road infrastructure, talking about how we come together as Parliament. Colleagues, talking about our compatriots in the European Parliament to help. That's the reason we have the JPA agreement. Now I talk about the post-Cotonou agreement. But there are a few things that we need to take into consideration, and they are very serious. We have been given a whole lot of nomenclatures, talking about how do we talk about road safety, how do we do curriculum development, or talk about education, awareness. But I'd like to put my bit on few things. First, seriousness on implementation. We have policies. No matter how poor you are, use implementation. How do you enforce your policy? Even if you have the money, if you don't enforce them and implement them, it's nothing. You can never get through safety standards to the peak you want them. We are talking about infrastructure. I've just highlighted the cooperation between the Europe and ACP countries. How we really address the issue of corruption within the infrastructural development of our road safety. We have all ignored corruption. Substandard infrastructure. If you construct brick poorly, you will get a result. And they have mentioned that road safety between 5 years to 29 years, these are young people coming up. We have ignored the issue of corruption and talking about infrastructure. There is huge money if you want to ensure that you enforce road safety. The investment in it. We are talking about colleagues in Europe. Ask them, they follow, they pay due diligence to what they are doing. When there is road infrastructure, you have to have road signs, money is allocated to different departments. But each for road standards in Africa, they are not there. So for us in Sierra Leone, what we do, we have looked at the figures. They are very alarming. Over 2,000 fatalities in 2020. And it's going up. Those who are injured, over 1,000. So even in implementing the Cotonou agreement, which is the Jordan agreement, we set up what we call the National Authorizing Office to ensure that in terms of road infrastructure, the European Union, in connection with that particular office, I brought the man in charge of the National Authorizing Office for the implementation of the Cotonou agreement. Now we are moving to the post-Cotonou agreement because we want to weed out corruption in those infrastructure development, especially that one that has to do with road safety. We award contracts, we make sure we come together because the business of Europe and ACP is about collaboration. If we want to save humanity, corruption is at the center of what we are doing. So when you weed out, even those who are implementing the safety standards, the police officers, they compromise. So you chase them. You use the issue of anti-corruption to go after them. They compromise standards. And when you compromise standards, you know the end product. So when we talk about people, people are there. Yes, the figures are there. We have had the figures in the Pacific from one of the presenters. We have the figures that Europe has less debt. But we chase what is happening. Have we followed exactly? Have we implemented the standards? Parliament can come together. Parliament can make collaborations from one parliament to that to enhance best practice. But we are just lawmakers. We are not enforcers. The police officers are the enforcers, or the traffic police, you call them. So how do we chase them to ensure that they do not compromise the standards? These are some of the things that we need to talk about. And is it not also asking? Yes, there are financing models. One of the presenters talking about financing, but the financing, they are bottlenecks. But if they are real that one, we have standards and fighting corruption in terms of implementation of road safety and also training police officers enforcing the law, you will get more package from them. But the little we have as African countries, I speak specifically for Africa, you make sure that your safety, the standards you have, enforcement and implementation should be the key words that we look for. No matter how poor you are, if you really enforce your laws, trust me, chairs we could have applied, the moving the highways from one district to another, you ensure that the accident rate will reduce. So by standards, by what you have presented, by what you have seen in Africa, it is true that we have high rates of road accidents because we don't implement the actual standards that we are expected. We have signed to do some of those treaties, but we need to implement to do more. When you do more, you expect your colleagues on the other side to come on board. But you cannot be implementing and you ignore corruption. You cannot be implementing and ignore road safety standard. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and co-presenters, for giving us the floor to say our bit. But I think the best we do the better for us, and best practice counts with enforcement and implementation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sierra Leone, for emphasizing and highlighting the proper implementation and enforcement of the laws that we have. And I am sorry for Bahamas, as I have said it earlier, we have already closed the list of speakers. And so in order to move forward, now I would ask the Commission if they have to make intervention. And I give the floor to Mrs. Maria Charia Plaza. Sorry if I didn't pronounce it properly, from the Commission. Please have the floor for 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to, I will be brief. I want to thank the co-rapporteur and the colleagues from the UN. I just wanted to briefly thank the colleagues from the UN. We really believe that the fund is an effective way to tackle road safety and to ensure road safety. That is why the European Commission decided to provide 3 million euros to the funds. Today we heard about the very good practices implemented in the partner countries. So we hope we can continue supporting the fund and other countries will support. And I just want to take the occasion and to echo the words of the rapporteur, the co-rapporteur. We are, of course, extremely concerned when we hear about the numbers of death fatalities. And I want just to take the chance today to stress that, of course, like children and youth are amongst the victims, and road traffic and incidents related to road traffic impact particularly youth. And youth is the driving force of our economy. And so I hope that we can look at this aspect as well. But overall, thanks to all the MEPs who intervened and the colleagues of the UN. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Commission. And now I give the floor to Henry and Elena Sentieri. Each of them, they will have 2 minutes to respond to any questions that they may feel need to be clarified. Thank you. One of you may start.
Yes.
So we have reconsidered Bahamas case, and suggestions have come that nobody has heard from the Caribbean. So it's exceptional we have accepted that, and please stick to the time limit. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, for your gracious acceptance of my application. One thing I just wanted to highlight was the international barriers that allow for decreased road safety. Now, you may ask, what do I mean by this? We're parties to the Basel Convention. The developing nations are normally known as dumping zones for vehicles that do not pass structural integrity or fitness purposes, especially emissions as well, right? So the thing is, you have a vehicle that is exported to the Bahamas. It does not pass its emissions test within the UK or any European or manufacturing countries. So therefore, it's sent to the Bahamas, where it not only contributes to poor emissions for that particular country, but also structural integrity of the vehicle, because now that vehicle is accepted as a usable road vehicle. Now, you may ask, why do I reference the Basel Convention? No problem. You may ask, well, why do I reference or refer to the Basel Convention as being a barrier? The thing is, with the Basel Convention, you cannot export the vehicle in its current form. So therefore, you have a faulty or structurally vehicle that is not accepted for export outside of the actual developing nation. All of these things add to decreased road safety as well. So that may be something that we should look at, because while we can lobby as parliamentarians to our various parliaments, we're still bound by our international obligations under certain conventions that are pre-existing, that ultimately disenfranchises us.
Thank you very much for that remark. Now I will still give the opportunity for Ms. Henry.
Oh, very gracious. Thank you. I won't be long. I just wanted to again thank you for this opportunity. It's not a very easy topic. There's so many things to cover. There's so many interlinkages, trade development, we've heard of corruption, there's environmental health, there's so many things to consider. We're in this together. I think we all have our role to play. As the UN Road Safety Fund, it's very much the operational arm of the UN to respond to this. We are doing our best to convene all the right partners to respond in all the right ways. But you know, the support of advocacy, I know financing is not top of the list, but it is a necessary ingredient to actually get this thing done. So let's not hide around the bush on that. But there's so many other things: legislation, education, enforcement. Enforcement is huge in every country, and also technology. So I think if we put our heads together into parliamentary debates and exchange of friendships, all of these ideas are great. The question is action. So what will you do tomorrow and the days after, the weeks after, and the months after? For me, an easy fix is just to advocate, but there's so much more that you can do. Thank you again for the opportunity, and please do let me know if you want to connect today or after. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Henry. And now I give the floor to Elena Sentieri for 2 minutes, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. I also will be very short, also because Ms. Henry already stole my words, but I thank again for the opportunity of being here, also to show UN Habitat work. Also thanks obviously to the great partnership with UN Road Safety Fund. And I particularly like the intervention and appreciate the intervention from Rwanda about the importance of sharing best practices. We really think that this is a key, and we really have the results and demonstration of this, because within our projects, we always try to entail this, and we really saw that this is very important. Also to see how countries that already succeeded in something, they can show to the others that it's really possible, and they already face the same challenges. And so this is even give courage, besides also obviously other examples and experience that can be followed. And also thanks also to the third presentation intervention regarding the importance of campaigns, advocacy, initiatives, education. Really think that even through seed projects or seed funds, we can really have impactful solutions, and we can really have some impact. So thanks again for this. I really think that education is the key, and also starting from young people is also something very important. So thank you very much, and also please feel free to connect us with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Elena Sentieri, and thank you again for sticking to the speaking time. And now we are about to close the discussions that we have, and I will give the floor to the two co-rapporteurs. Maybe we can start with Ms. Du.
Thank you, co-chairs. I think everything really has been said, except perhaps to echo one sentiment that we probably should take home. Somebody talked about their own country, and also that some strategies are going to be country specific. What is it in your own country that is specific and you believe that it actually undermines road safety? In my country, it could be the distance, because I come from a very, very large country, sparsely populated, so there's a lot of travel, to social events. In some countries, like, perhaps it's a teeny, it could be because that's the landscape itself. So I think even as we have come up with overbroad policies, there's going to be certain things that are country specific, and I thought maybe it's something that we should just think about. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the broad discussions with such good ideas and exchange of views. I think one of the things are the best practice we need from each country. So maybe you can support us to send us emails, give us more information. And I think now it's a starting point. We have the possibility to add more in the report. So thank you so much for this discussion, and all the best. I hope we can share the same values and we find a common line for the solution, for the resolution at the end, and the report.
Thank you very much, both of you co-rapporteurs. At this moment, I would like to thank you all for your excellent contribution and the lively debate that we have on this topic. And our discussion has been informed by the experts that we have heard. And all this added together, I'm quite sure that it will enrich the draft report that we have and will come with an excellent paper on the work that we are handling at present. And of course, I would like to remind also that we have an opportunity again for some amendments and discussions on the issue. So again, thank you all. Let me remind to the committee members that the schedule of the report will be as follows. Today, 30th of October, a first exchange of view is taking place. A revised version of the draft report to take into account elements from today's discussion will be tabled by the co-rapporteurs in the coming weeks. Once the revised report sent out, a deadline for amendments for early February will be communicated by email. At the committee meeting in Brussels in March 2023, the amendment will be considered and there will be a vote on the report. Finally, the committee report will be considered for final adoption by the plenary of the JPA for the third session to be held late in spring 2023, likely in June, in one of the European countries. Thank you very much. We are now moving of our agenda. I am giving back the floor to my co-chair, Ms. Sedberg Fofana. Thank you very much.
Bon, je remercie donc le coprésident, mon coprésident, pour me passer maintenant la parole et diriger donc cet atelier. Monsieur Naïb, merci beaucoup. Alors, nous allons maintenant aborder la question de l'accès à l'eau dans le contexte de la sécheresse mondiale et du changement climatique. Le changement climatique est avant tout une crise de l'eau. Nous ressentons tous ces effets à travers l'aggravation des inondations, l'élévation du niveau de la mer, la diminution des gisements de glace, les incendies de forêt et les sécheresses. Toutefois, l'eau peut également lutter contre le changement climatique. La gestion durable de l'eau est essentielle pour renforcer la résilience des sociétés et des écosystèmes et pour réduire les émissions de carbone. Tout le monde a un rôle à jouer. Les actions au niveau individuel et au niveau des ménages sont vitales. Aujourd'hui, nous avons l'occasion d'entendre M. Carlos Manuel dos Santos Cerro, le directeur de la coopérative d'éducation environnementale, Repensal, qui est un expert très connu au Mozambique en matière de changement climatique. Il nous donnera donc une perspective générale régionale sur cette question importante. Monsieur Serra, vous avez la parole et vous disposez de 15 minutes environ. Merci.
Muito boa tarde a todos. É uma ocasião para mim para estar a falar para tantas nacionalidades ao mesmo tempo e espero que estejam a gostar do nosso país.
Translation in French.
Ok. Posso? Não.
Oui, je vous entends maintenant. Je vous entends maintenant. Je vous entends. Oui, je vous entends. Merci. Merci. Excusez-moi.
Non. Non. Non.
La machine de M. Serra ne fonctionne pas. Je vous demande de patienter. Nous allons faire appel à un technicien tout de suite pour pouvoir afin que la machine de M. Serra puisse fonctionner.
Now it's back. No, it's back. It is back.
Já está.
Et maintenant?
Ok?
Yes, ok.
Pronto. Pronto, eu agora vou tentar ganhar tempo. É um prazer estar convosco. Eu sou Carlos, sou ativista ambiental, professor e investigador universitário. Vai ser muito difícil falar para tantas realidades, portanto, gostaria de focar um pouco na nossa experiência em Moçambique, creio que será comum a alguns dos países aqui presentes. Bem, em termos de acesso à água, o nosso país, obviamente, apesar dos esforços todos que tem vindo a fazer, nós ainda temos metade dos moçambicanos sem ter um acesso à água, quer em quantidade, quer em qualidade satisfatórias, e os dados do saneamento são um pouco piores, e era importante não esquecer a relação que existe em água e saneamento, quando o saneamento não funciona e não acompanha os esforços do investimento em matéria de acesso à água, é óbvio que compromete essa mesma qualidade da água. Bom, e aqui apenas 1/5 dos moçambicanos usam um sistema de saneamento melhorado. Nós temos também ainda muitas desigualdades entre meio rural e meio urbano, e temos também desigualdades no contexto do centro urbano versus periferia, recordando que as nossas cidades estão em expansão, e é um dado que é comum à maior parte dos países, as cidades estão a crescer, isto significa muitos bairros de expansão, que os bairros autoproduzem-se, portanto nós fazemos as nossas casas, as nossas ruas, nós vamos buscar a água, nós vamos buscar a eletricidade, e sabemos que isso significa muitas vezes não ter acesso imediato em condições razoáveis. Temos também desigualdades a nível do país. A província de Maputo, por exemplo, tem cerca de 87% da sua população com acesso à água, mas olhando, e cerca de 70% para o acesso ao saneamento, mas se olharmos para a província da Zambésia, uma das províncias mais pobres, mas simultaneamente mais populosa, os dados descem, 30,6% acesso à água, 13% no acesso ao saneamento. Portanto, há um desafio muito grande ainda nesta matéria. Um dado importante, o Covid-19 trouxe-nos uma preocupação com a higienização, mas obviamente que as nossas escolas muitas vezes não tinham água, e tínhamos lá escolas, mas a água não tínhamos para lavar as mãos das crianças, portanto isso mostrou também uma fragilidade muito grande e coloca-nos um desafio diante de nós, é que depois do Covid o nosso esforço tem que ser continuar a trabalhar para que toda a criança tenha acesso à água, e principalmente as raparigas, porque nós sabemos o que significa uma rapariga sem acesso à água e o impacto que isso tem nela própria. Também temos uma relação com a subnutrição, cerca de 43% das nossas crianças com menos de 5 anos vive uma situação de subnutrição crónica, a água está lá também para trabalhar. Apesar disto tudo, o país tem estado a fazer um esforço muito grande e nós acompanhamos o esforço e levamos o esforço também. Queria recordar que Moçambique é um dos países mais vulneráveis do mundo em termos de mudanças climáticas e hoje está também a enfrentar uma situação de seca e desertificação na região sul. Temos muita água água a mais numa parte do país, água a menos em outras áreas. E água a mais não significa necessariamente algo bom, pode significar uma tragédia verdadeira. Eu cresci ouvindo falar, por exemplo, dos ciclones, e ciclones em 77 significaram desde logo uma tragédia na região sul. Há memórias sobre isso, há pouca informação, mas há memórias, os mais antigos recordam-se o que significou, mas, por exemplo, vem daí a nossa experiência em termos de gestão de fenómenos climáticos extremos. Toda a organização política e institucional aprendeu com as cheias de cheias de 77, causadas por uma depressão, e o ciclone Emily esteve lá. Não sei porque é que damos os nomes de mulher aos ciclones, ainda não encontrei uma expressão convincente, há um argumento convincente, mas a maior parte deles tem nomes de uma mulher. Então a Emily foi para nós uma desgraça, mas ensinou-nos a lidar com os fenómenos climáticos extremos. Vivemos em 2000 um momento muito difícil. Eu comecei a minha carreira em 2000, foram as cheias também na região sul, novamente uma zona chamada Vale do Limpopo, foi o maior, infelizmente, fenómeno climático extremo da nossa história. Até então gerou muita dor, muito sofrimento, muitas mortes e muito património destruído, incluindo muitas culturas. Bem, reforçámos os mecanismos de lidar com os fenómenos climáticos extremos e temos vindo a fortalecer a nossa abordagem, mas realmente o país continua a enfrentar e cada vez mais as consequências das mudanças climáticas. Mais uma vez o nome de uma mulher, Emily, e ficamos com esta experiência para a vida. 2019, triste para Moçambique, em apenas um ano, 2 ciclones, um com categoria 3, outro com categoria 4, Idai na região centro e o Kennedy na região norte. Não sei se começámos a aprender a dar nomes não femininos nessa altura, mas o que é certo é que foi muito difícil para o país e os impactos até hoje continuam. Não conseguimos ainda providenciar o apoio que seria ideal a todas as famílias que foram afetadas. Portanto, parte do apoio que foi prometido pela comunidade internacional não chegou até ao momento a quem mais precisa. Continuamos a lidar com o impacto do Idai e depois do Kennedy, e entretanto sofremos mais alguns fenómenos nos anos seguintes, incluindo este mesmo ano com o ciclone Gombe, que afetou uma região já por si muito vulnerável, já por si muito necessitada, inclusivamente parte dela a receber deslocados provenientes da área afetada pela insurgência na província de Cabo Delgado. Portanto, é uma atrás de outra, e nós vamos fortalecendo os nossos mecanismos. Queria referir também que em matéria de seca, sofremos uma seca muito forte no início da década de 80, e ela foi mais severa ainda se pensarmos que vivíamos um contexto de guerra, e desde 2016 que na região sul a seca está realmente a causar muitos impactos, portanto coloca-nos imensos desafios que eu vou já daqui a bocadinho falar um pouco sobre eles. Como é que nos estamos a organizar? Ratificamos as convenções de mudanças climáticas sobre seca e desertificação e sobre das Nações Unidas. Começámos também a trabalhar em políticas e estratégias. Há uma estratégia muito importante que é uma estratégia nacional de adaptação e mitigação das mudanças climáticas que abrange o período de 2013 e 2025. Eu próprio participei ativamente na elaboração da Lei de Gestão e Redução do Risco de Desastres, que data de 2020 e que traz já uma novidade importante, que é lidar com fenómenos de progressão lenta, como é o caso de uma seca e de um processo de desertificação. Portanto, não apenas com os ciclones e outros eventos climáticos extremos e súbitos, mas também com estes fenómenos lentos, o que implica uma reestruturação completa na nossa forma de planificar, de orçamentar e nos prepararmos também. Em matéria de desafios, portanto, não queria alongar muito, porque já estou com 7 minutos e 52, eu sou professor e gosto de ser pontual. Em primeiro lugar, temos de trabalhar na correção de desigualdades. E estas desigualdades não são somente desigualdades nacionais em Moçambique, são desigualdades também regionais, são desigualdades mundiais. Portanto, há aqui um trabalho enorme a fazer e, mais do que nunca, o conceito de justiça é fundamental. Às vezes esquecemos desse conceito, infelizmente, às vezes esquecemos também do que nós assumimos em termos de compromissos internacionais e no terreno sabemos o que isso significa para as pessoas mais pobres, para as pessoas mais vulneráveis. Temos também um trabalho muito grande a fazer entre o meio rural e o meio urbano, portanto há aqui uma desigualdade profunda e há muito trabalho a fazer no meio rural. No entanto, não nos devemos esquecer que nas nossas cidades, portanto, e Moçambique tem hoje, estamos a aproximar-nos de 40% da urbanização, portanto, população a viver em contexto urbano, apesar de eu achar que os dados estão subestimados por causa do nosso próprio modelo de organização administrativa, creio que o número de população a viver nas cidades é bem maior. Portanto, isto implica também um desafio muito grande de fazer chegar água em qualidade e em quantidade a todos os moçambicanos, mas também a todos os cidadãos do mundo. Temos países que têm grandes reservas, muito mais para a sua própria população, e temos países aí aqui representados que vivem um stress hídrico permanente e com as mudanças climáticas esse stress só vai aumentar. Temos também que considerar, e acho muito importante, as tendências de desflorestamento que ocorrem a nível mundial e vão ocorrendo também a nível da África subsaariana, portanto o país depende ainda de biomassa, lenha e carvão, portanto, e dependemos também de uma agricultura de subsistência, é a nossa pobreza, mas isto significa também uma fragilidade acentuada em relação a estes fenómenos e logicamente que interferimos no ciclo da água, portanto se continuarmos estas tendências de florestamento, principalmente em zonas de nascente, o cenário vai piorar. O país e parte dos países que aqui está, por exemplo, ainda não tem legislação sobre montanhas. Portanto, o direito das montanhas é um direito novo e há um trabalho que está a ser feito em alguns casos, mas há muito a fazer também a nós. Portanto, em termos de ordenamento jurídico nacional, nós não temos normas que regem a montanha no seu todo. E a montanha é o berço da água, ou parte da água depende dessa montanha. Ao interferirmos, portanto, nesta montanha, já sabemos que vamos alterar completamente o ciclo da água. E a tendência é subir a montanha à medida que as condições se degradam, portanto, em baixo, só que essa subida muitas vezes é acompanhada por muito desflorestamento, que gera depois desabamento de terras, muita erosão e alteração completa do clima. E quando falamos de mudanças climáticas, a tendência é pensar nas globais e não devemos esquecer que o clima também muda localmente e muda por causas nossas, geradas por nós, portanto há uma combinação de fatores globais e fatores locais que deve ser considerado. Capitalizar o que cai da chuva. A maior parte da água perde-se, a verdade é esta, perde-se porque não estamos preparados para lidar com ela. Quando chove e achamos que carregamos, portanto, as reservas hídricas, esquecemos de como era antigamente, que vivíamos, por exemplo, com um sistema de cisternas nas nossas casas. A maior parte dos edifícios não tem cisterna, não tem sistemas de captação de água. Depois vem uma crise hídrica, lembramos, e claramente olhamos sempre para o sistema como o causador, mas a verdade é esta, creio que temos que trabalhar muito nas infraestruturas, não somente públicas, mas também privadas, individuais, para que a água, cada gota que caia, seja capitalizada a 100%. Temos telhados, mas não estamos a fazer uso deles, e a água vai toda ela em direção ao mar, ou parte dela em direção ao mar, portanto o rio conecta com o mar. Gostaria também que não nos esquecêssemos de trabalhar num contexto de circularidade, portanto os novos edifícios já deviam ter todos os dispositivos de economia circular, portanto a água é um bem fundamental, mas é um bem incrível, nós podemos não só reciclar, mas reutilizar também. Mas infelizmente inventámos as descargas, o milagre do botão. O que acontece depois da descarga não é nosso assunto. A verdade é que a água perde-se por completo e a água também leva muito resíduo, porque fazemos o mesmo com o lixo. E por esta história de acharmos que existe um fora, e não há fora coisa nenhuma, acabamos comprometendo completamente o equilíbrio ecológico e o equilíbrio climático. Por exemplo, nós encontramos numa parte da cidade ainda de origem colonial, onde nos encontramos já sistemas de drenagem antigos, orientados todos eles para onde? Para o mar. E é assim que fazemos as cidades, orientamos tudo para fora. Depois o mar encarrega-se de lidar com a nossa própria poluição. Mas para o mar vai muita água que poderia estar a ser melhor utilizada a montante ou 100% utilizante. Estou quase no fim, falta-me 1 minuto e qualquer coisa. Não quero deixar de falar sobre a educação para a conservação da água. Creio que muitos aqui foram falando na educação. O tema anterior falou também sobre a questão da educação, mas a educação é a chave e tem que ser lá quanto mais pequeninos, porque nós temos que ser diferentes do que temos vindo a fazer. Alguns ainda acham que podem ter uma piscina em casa. Eu não estou contra as piscinas, mas creio que devemos repensar completamente a forma de pensar, de olharmos para isso. Há quem tenha uma piscina usa uma vez por ano, portanto uma minoria dá-se ao luxo de ter piscinas, uma grande maioria por dias tem que deslocar quilómetros para ir procurar algo em algum lugar, e se forem raparigas já sabemos que é um trabalho que normalmente é entregue a raparigas, vão enfrentar todo um conjunto de riscos. Estou a provocar a história das piscinas porque é a moda do dia. Trabalhar também na questão do direito à água, portanto há países que já deram um passo muito grande nessa matéria, alguns instrumentos internacionais têm vindo a referir o assunto, portanto a constitucionalização do direito à água é fundamental, mas também há aqui que trabalhar numa ferramenta internacional, portanto há muito TPC, trabalho para casa, para as instituições internacionais, colocarem este direito como um direito importante. Isto implica também refletir nos nossos ordenamentos. Moçambique tem legislação, sem dúvida, mas ainda não ao ponto de considerarmos o direito à água como um direito fundamental, apesar de eu entender como jurista que se trata de um direito fundamental, ainda que não esteja na Constituição. Um aspecto muito importante, faltam-me 2 pontos, era como lidar com a situação destes fenómenos, quer os lentos, quer os súbitos, os fenómenos climáticos extremos, como garantir que a água chegue a todas as famílias, sabendo o que está a acontecer também, como podemos estar preparados para lidar com estas consequências das mudanças climáticas, porque estas consequências também afetam os sistemas de providenciar água às pessoas. Portanto, estamos neste momento num verdadeiro dilema. Temos que nos preparar, também temos que construir uma resiliência para garantir que em momentos de crise a água não falte a quem mais precisa. Finalmente, justiça climática. É um termo cada vez mais em voga, portanto, como garantir também que haja justiça, como garantir também que os danos que nós temos vindo a sofrer nos nossos países sejam ressarcidos, sabendo que não somos responsáveis por essas emissões. Não vou estar aqui a falar de quanto é que contribuímos em matéria de emissões, mas realmente é necessário que se fale cada vez mais disto, porque estamos a sofrer, e não é uma questão de pedir, é uma questão de justiça, é uma questão elementar. Nós temos o direito a sermos ressarcidos por isto que estamos a sofrer há muitas décadas. Muito obrigado a todos.
Merci bien, Monsieur Serra, pour votre excellente présentation. Et nous allons maintenant donner la parole à la Commission européenne, qui est représentée par Madame Maria Chiara Piazza.
Thank you very much for giving me the floor.
Where you are.
I would like to start maybe by sharing our concern. There are estimates that says that by 2050, more than half of the world's population could experience severe water scarcity. But of course, we know that large numbers of people remain already right now without access to safe drinking water supplies and sanitation, as it was just said by our speaker. We know also that water availability is decreasing, and the trend is evident both in countries with high water availability as well as in countries where water is historically scarcer. So this applies both to European Union and ACP countries. It's really a topic of common concern. And of course, water scarcity and droughts are already a reality. And the problem will deteriorate in the future, as we know. Hence the importance of investment in this area. Another important element to mention is, of course, climate change. It was said by the expert now, climate change will lead to increased vulnerability in many countries. So it is important that water and sanitation and health intervention take into account climate change and also takes into account the projected long effect of climate change and the predictions in terms of what we know will happen in the future. So it's really important as well that in hazard-prone areas, developing and managing water and sanitation infrastructure and services take into account climate change. When it comes to the European Union policy framework, we believe there are three elements which are key and I would like to highlight. First of all, we believe it is necessary to improve global advocacy for the human right to access to safe drinking water and sanitation. We also believe, and this is the second element, that supporting investment in the water sector by improving the attractiveness and efficiency of water operators and organizations is key. It's important to have global exchanges of knowledge, know-how, standards, north-south, south-south. And the third element, of course, and today's event is part of that, we support, of course, global multilateralism. So we need to work together on this pressing issue. When it comes to the actual financial investment of the European Union, in our past multi-annual framework, so the period 2014-2020, we invested up to 3.5 billion on the field on water and sanitation, and we intend to keep this investment for the period to come. But it also, we are reflecting, of course, on lessons learned, and we believe that there is a strong potential on working on blending and guarantees and also attracting the private sector to work in the field of water and sanitation facilities. A concrete example, a Team Europe initiative on transboundary water management for Africa will be implemented together with the EU member states to support in Africa continental dynamics to use more efficiently and sustainable the resources, while also considering the trade-off and the synergies between several sectors such as energy, agriculture, water access and ecosystem. This is, of course, just one example of our work. And let me say that we also believe that we need to, of course, look at the specificities of each country and each region. When it comes to the Caribbean and listening, of course, to our partners, we hear that the importance of focusing more on the linkages between the ecosystem, but also urban water. So, and the urban dimension was mentioned before. When it comes to Africa, but as well Asia, the importance of transboundary water collaboration, but also strengthening our data and knowledge on water and sanitation. And in the Pacific, water access and sanitation. Again, we want to keep our investments in this sector in our current multi-annual financial framework. When it comes to support to partner countries, 30% of our funding will be linked to climate change objectives and at least 20% to human development objectives, which includes, of course, water and sanitation. I just wanted to highlight these points in my presentation, and just to conclude, again, stress something that was mentioned by our key speaker, is that to conclude, let me stress that increased variability and scarcity of water resources are affecting our capability to deliver on human rights. The right to drinking water and sanitation is a human right, but it's linked, of course, also to the right for food, which is now threatened by climate change, droughts and floods. At the same time, we also believe that water is a public good hosted by our ecosystem, and it's often shared between countries, among countries. So it's really a field that calls for multilateralism and cooperation and partnership. So once again, strong plea to continue working for the human rights of access to safe water and access to sanitation. Thank you very much.
Merci, Madame Chiassa, pour votre déclaration. Et la discussion est à présent ouverte au cas où des collègues Ah, voilà. Donc, je disais, je remercie Madame Piazza pour sa déclaration et toutes les informations qu'elle nous a fournies en ce qui concerne l'eau, cet accès à l'eau potable pour tous, l'eau comme un bien public. La discussion est maintenant ouverte et, chers collègues, si vous souhaitez prendre la parole, veuillez lever la main et on va prendre vos noms et donc je passerai donc tout de suite au nom de qui veut prendre la parole. Alors, on va commencer par une dame. Madame Rita Sitolé, vous avez la parole.
Obrigada.
Veuillez vous présenter, s'il vous plaît, des questions courtes afin que nous puissions prendre tout le monde. Ne m'obligez pas à jouer le petit policier. Merci.
Merci. Obrigada, senhores co-presidentes. Moçambique é membro deste Comitê 3 e é com muita alegria que recebemos aqui compatriota nosso, moçambicano, especialista em matérias climáticas e ambiente. Depois da apresentação feita pelo professor Serra, eu apenas iria confirmar que, na verdade, em Moçambique, o Parlamento já aprovou a lei que foi aqui referenciada. O grande problema, colegas parlamentares, e particularmente nós da Organização dos Estados ACP, é a fiscalização, a implementação destas leis. E Moçambique está nessa fase. Nós temos uma lei, tivemos muitos ativistas sociais a trabalharem nisso, tivemos a sociedade civil que sempre ajudou, mas agora estamos perante a fiscalização, que continua sendo um problema, com todos os desafios de que o professor Serra apresentou. Esta lei de redução de riscos e desastres naturais é um fenômeno que acontece e é interessante que em Moçambique, no mesmo ano, temos zonas do país que enfrentam problemas de muita água, água em excesso e até cheias, e depois temos uma zona do país que tem seca e estiagem. No mesmo ano temos dois fenômenos e é cíclico. E perante isto tudo temos os graves problemas que qualquer país em estágio ainda de desenvolvimento enfrenta. Apenas intervi para agradecer e confirmar que tudo que foi dito pelo professor Serra acontece no nosso país e penso que acontece na zona, que um dia nós teremos a água como um conflito, sairemos de resolver problemas de paz por causa do terrorismo e vamos ter que entrar nos problemas de gestão da água. Obrigada.
Merci, Madame Sitolé. Je donne maintenant la parole à la Sierra Leone, le député de la Sierra Leone, s'il vous plaît.
Thank you very much, Madam. I'll try to be brief. Professor, and your co-presenter, you engaged on one particular thing that gets me very interested about this climate change, humanity. Humanity counts a lot. I was at the Limpopo River yesterday, and the speaker before me said, in 1 year, 3 events taking place. And today, climate change, we are all seeing, it's right before us. As I said yesterday in one of my programs, we ignore the COVID, refer to COVID as Chinese business. After some time, we all are talking about COVID, and it brought the world to a standstill. We have been talking about climate change for years and years. Our inaction is causing huge debt to humanity. We have not acted enough, and we are at a defining moment where we need to act. They have called for justice of carbon emission. We are ignoring states that are doing it. And we are merely the facts and looking at other issues. The scientific data are very clear in front of us. The issues of climate change are very clear. Professor was very eloquent in his presentation, talking about humanity, human rights. We ask ourselves the business of cooperation between the ACP countries and that of the Europe. We came together as democrats. Democracy is about people. If we say democracy is about people, we are here together under the ACP and the EU agreement, the Georgetown and the post-Cotonou agreement. Let us come together to fight the climate change. Nobody is bigger than us. But we have circumvented our explanation, giving scientific data, living out humanity. If we're all humans, we should take this fight to those who are causing climate change affecting us. As they have said, we can move on. How do we move on? It's not only you have the legislations, but adequate enforcement to put in place. I mean, just my previous speaker said, and that goes for those who are emitting. Put expensive price on carbon emission. Nobody is bigger than another person. God created us the same in his likeness and image. But to those who are receiving huge impact of the climate change are those who are not even having high technology. Professor, you said it all. You use Mozambique example. People are suffering. I will talk about vulnerable people, children and women. Climate change is affecting them. Look at Sudan. Look at Ethiopia. Look at Vanuatu. All of this country, the Pacific, people are suffering. And we are ignoring the facts about climate change. Climate change is real. Just as we came together to solve the business of COVID, still is around us, but we came together to ensure that COVID must be taken care of. And we are succeeding. So climate change, too much of talking is too much. Let us now go to the reality and face the fact and go after the bigger guys that are causing the climate change to us. Thank you, madam, for giving me the floor. I know you want to cut me off, but this thing is becoming more of a religion to us now to fight climate change. That's only talking about it. The rhetoric is too much for some of us. Let us put action to our inaction. Thank you very much, madam.
Maintenant, je donne la parole à la Mauritanie.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Moi, j'ai le problème, mon pays souffre d'un problème structurel de manque criant d'eau, car c'est un pays désertique. Et au niveau de notre capitale, l'accès à l'eau est limité aux zones du centre. Les périphéries manquent cruellement d'eau. Et surtout, nous avons un problème au niveau de la capitale qui regroupe les 2/3 de la population, un problème d'assainissement. On n'a pas un assainissement fiable. Au début de l'existence de notre capitale politique, il y avait un réseau d'assainissement, mais depuis qu'il y a eu, la sécheresse, beaucoup de populations se sont greffées aux alentours de la ville, constituant des bidonvilles énormes. Donc, l'État a dû faire face à ce phénomène dû essentiellement à la sécheresse et à la venue des populations de tous bords. Mais il a distribué des parcelles de terrain, mais qui ne sont pas viabilisées. Donc, aujourd'hui, les populations vivent dans sont propriétaires de leur parcelle de terrain, mais il n'y a aucun instrument pour l'assainissement des villes. Ça, tout dernièrement, nous avons lancé un grand projet d'assainissement pour les eaux de pluie, mais vu que malheureusement, ça n'a pas fonctionné. C'est toujours le problème de suivi des infrastructures que nous constatons malheureusement. L'État a dû décaisser un gros montant pour les Chinois, mais malheureusement, ça n'a pas donné ses fruits. Ça a fini en queue de poisson. Aujourd'hui, on fait face vraiment à ce problème d'assainissement qui pose un casse-tête pour notre gouvernement. Et nous demandons à ce qu'on soit appuyé techniquement et financièrement. Il y a au niveau des oasis qui était un point. Vous savez que le désert, seul subsiste des oasis avec des palmeraies qui donnent vie à des populations très faibles et très pauvres. Il y a tout dernièrement, il y a eu une surexploitation de ces nappes d'eau et ça a donné un tarissement qui commence à porter atteinte à la vie de ces populations qui résident dans ces oasis-là. C'est vraiment un problème aussi à notre niveau. Nous commençons, les forages qui sont faits sont à 30-40 mètres, mais nous commençons à explorer pour avoir des possibilités de forage plus long. Au niveau de notre zone minière, au niveau de Zouerat et de Nouadhibou, nous savons que les mines demandent beaucoup d'eau. Malheureusement, ces villes ne sont pas pourvues en eau. Nous comptons lancer un grand projet pour qu'elle soit alimentée à partir soit du fleuve Sénégal, soit à partir de l'océan Atlantique. Si les techniques de désalinisation, mais nous demandons aussi un appui technique, surtout pour trouver des solutions à ces problèmes. Nous vous remercions, Madame la Présidente.
Merci bien, monsieur. Et maintenant, je donne la parole à la République centrafricaine.
Merci, Madame. Madame et Messieurs les coprésidents, Monsieur Serra, honorables députés, chers collègues, Mesdames, Messieurs, la thématique accès à l'eau dans le contexte de la sécheresse et le changement climatique est véritablement poignante et les débats le confirment. Ce débat a amené plusieurs mesures. Et comme nous l'avons suivi, il ne s'agit pas seulement de questions d'accès à l'eau ou d'inégal accès à l'eau. Le focus, si j'ai bien compris son exposé, c'est sur les changements climatiques. Et depuis des années, nous revenons là-dessus. Des engagements, Madame la Présidente, ont été pris par des pays que nous connaissons. Aujourd'hui, nous sommes ceux qui subissent le plus ces effets sans que nous en soyons les causes. Or, les causes, nous les connaissons. Nous savons qui a fait quoi. Mais j'ai l'impression que nous n'abordons pas le problème de face. Il y a eu plusieurs COP. Nous préparons une autre réunion en Égypte. Mais pour dire quoi exactement, pour nous apporter quoi? C'est pour ça que je voudrais que notre discussion se fonde autour de cette problématique. C'est de savoir qu'est-ce qu'on fait concrètement des engagements qui sont quotidiennement pris et qui ne sont qu'à traduits dans la réalité. Nous devrons nous parler, nous sommes des partenaires, ACP, Union européenne, mais il n'y a pas que l'Union européenne. Il y a d'autres pays qui sont également pollueurs. Et je pense qu'il faudra ouvrir le débat pour que nous puissions mettre enfin en place un mécanisme contraignant afin que nous arrêtions avec la rhétorique. Nous subissons tous les jours les conséquences et nous n'avons que nos petites solutions pour y faire face. Qu'est-ce qu'on fait? Je voudrais que les honorables députés qui sont là réfléchissent à quoi faire, comment faire pour que nous arrivions à des solutions concrètes. Donc, je souhaiterais que nous réfléchissions sur un mécanisme contraignant par rapport aux engagements qui ont été pris et que la mise en œuvre puisse nous permettre d'apporter des solutions aux problèmes que nous avons. M. Serra a parlé d'augmentation du nombre de cyclones. Si on n'en était qu'au problème d'accès ou d'inégal accès à l'eau, on le réglerait. Mais a-t-on des solutions pour réduire le nombre de cyclones? C'est manifestement des effets du changement climatique. Et nous savons que nous ne pouvons pas régler cette question à notre niveau seulement. Il faudra donc je vais résumer, je vais m'arrêter là. Il faudra donc que nous puissions mettre en place un mécanisme contraignant avec nos partenaires de l'Union européenne et d'autres, afin que nous n'en soyons pas qu'à la rhétorique. Je vous remercie.
Merci, monsieur. Je donne maintenant la parole à la République centrafricaine.
C'est moi-même.
C'était...
Merci, Madame la Présidente. La Guinée n'est pas membre de la Commission, mais je prends la parole pour partager un paradoxe. La Guinée est le château d'eau de l'Afrique occidentale. Il y a des populations guinéennes qui souffrent de problèmes d'eau. Il y a des femmes qui parcourent des kilomètres pour aller à la recherche de l'eau. Ensuite, la question de l'eau dans nos différents pays est liée aussi à une question de gouvernance. Si les responsabilités ne sont pas prises dans le cadre de la gestion de ces questions, il est très difficile. Parce qu'aujourd'hui, nous assistons à la floraison des forages. Alors, la multiplication de ces forages a une conséquence très négative dans l'écosystème. Nous avons aujourd'hui dans certaines de nos régions, à Tougué par exemple, il a commencé à faire des tremblements de terre à faible degré. Donc, la mauvaise gestion de l'eau peut apporter des conséquences très négatives pour la survie des populations. Ensuite, il est question pour nous, quand on dit souvent que l'eau c'est la vie, ça veut dire que cette question doit nous tenir à tête à plus d'un titre. Nous ne devons plus nous arrêter seulement aux différentes résolutions, mais pousser aussi les différents pays qui ont de l'expérience à partager la gestion de l'eau pour qu'on puisse nous inspirer de ces questions, parce qu'il y a des moments où, à travers les installations, il y a beaucoup de perditions d'eau, alors que l'eau est une ressource très rare, car nous disons souvent que l'eau, c'est la vie. Sur ces mots, je m'arrête là et je vous remercie pour la parole.
Merci bien, monsieur. Et maintenant, je donne la parole au Botswana. Madame, vous avez la parole.
Thank you very much, co-chairs, for calling on me to make a contribution on this very important issue of access to water in the context of drought and climate change. Listening to Resera, I noted that we're talking about access to water, access to drinking water for personal use, for personal sanitation. You also talked about access to water for agricultural purposes, and you touched as well on water for recreational purposes. And it seemed to me that going forward, we should be talking about international, regional, and national regulations to create balances about the use of water for these purposes. I think we can all accept that in many of our countries, if you live in an urban setting, you have more access to water than somebody, or at least potable water than somebody in some rural community. So we've come to almost accept that if you live in large communities, you are entitled to services more than when you live in smaller communities. You have, if you live in a small village, you probably don't even have a school. You don't have a clinic. You don't have access to water. So it's almost like we have become, it's a given that the more of you they are together, the more rights you have as individuals. So I think we have to really think about, this paradigm, of cities and villages, big villages being entitled to more services than small rural communities, that are too far from the center. You talked about, you made the example of, for example, the swimming pool, that people still think that it's okay to have a swimming pool. You also talked about, for example, the fact that we don't collect water. I just want to say that nobody's going to demolish that swimming pool just because, they read somewhere that it is not a good thing. You need regulations to force action. You need regulation and laws to actually, to regulate the use of water. You need regulations, to direct even the collection of water. And let me just give we made things a silly example. You need a regulation to actually say that faucets must be labeled How many of us have been in hotels where you spend 5 minutes trying to figure out whether this is hot water, this is cold water, until you come, you realize, okay, because even something as basic as that is not even properly labeled. And there's so much wastage within small things like this. How many of us are in hotels where you turn even the hot water tap, even your own house, it takes 5 minutes for water to heat because the geyser is 5 meters away from where you are. There's so much loss of power, loss of so many things as it was traveling to where the water source to where you are. But until and unless there are regulations that are demanding that we use resources more effectively and efficiently, we will not do it. So it seems to me like what we're talking about is laws and regulations to make sure this happens. And the other thing is, of course, is that even if I demolish my swimming pool, doesn't necessarily mean that somebody's cow is going to have water somewhere. Because again, distribution of water is a problem. So it's not enough to say use less unless we actually redistributing to those people who actually do have water. And the other thing is really we need regulations about human settlements. I've already said that, but also human settlements around water sources. I think especially in countries where tourism is a major revenue source, you'll find that people from the neighboring people, these citizens, have no access to riverfronts because those have been taken by hotels, been taken by tourism enterprises, and as a result, we actually find that we are using water sources for recreational purposes as opposed to actually for drinking, as for bathing, as for for what consumption. Regulations around even groundwater. I think in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, we're going to be shocked that we actually granted individuals the right to water, exclusive right to water around wells, around riverfronts. So I really think we have to look at these issues as to how can we promote water access, through regulation and laws. I thank you, Ms. Chairperson.
Merci bien, Madame. Frau Neuschel, Sie haben das Wort, bitte.
Ganz herzlichen Dank. Ich glaube, es ist wirklich eine der wichtigsten Debatten, die Debatte ums Wasser. Nur ein Aspekt hat mir bisher noch gefehlt. Es geht nicht nur um das sichtbare Wasser.
Moment. Peut-être prenez vos écouteurs parce que Madame Neuschel parle en allemand. J'ai oublié de le dire. So, bitte. Nochmal, ich gebe Ihnen 2 Minuten.
Ist kein Problem. Starte ich nochmal. Es ist eine sehr wichtige Debatte, die Debatte um das Wasser. Wir haben bisher aber nur über das sichtbare Wasser gesprochen. Über das Wasser, das wir wirklich sehen können, sei es in der Badewanne, im Swimmingpool oder das Frauentragen. Ich glaube, wir müssten schon aber auch über Wasseräquivalente sprechen, nämlich über Dinge, die durch Wasser erzeugt werden und dann zum Beispiel auch im Handel landen. Und da ist die Situation, glaube ich, schon offen zu benennen, dass wenn Europa zum Beispiel Tabak in Malawi einkauft, dass wir damit Wasseräquivalente aus Malawi kaufen. Oder wenn Europa Ananas einkauft, dass Ananas Wasseräquivalente sind, also umgewandeltes Wasser ist. Hier mal nochmal ganz ehrlich zu sein und deutlich zu machen, wie wir gemeinschaftlich mit dem weltweiten Wasser umgehen, das würde ich gerne noch anregen, dass wir nicht nur über das sichtbare Wasser, sondern auch über die Wasseräquivalente reden. Herzlichen Dank.
Vielen Dank. Donc, moi, je vais prendre aussi la parole. Et j'ai une question à la Commission maintenant. Ou bien il y a encore quelqu'un qui veut prendre la parole parmi les députés? Nobody want to speak? No? Any member? So I have one question to the Commission. Alors, si la Commission européenne soutient le principe que l'eau est un bien commun et un droit humain fondamental, comment s'assurer que les investissements du secteur privé dans le cadre du blending et des partenariats publics-privés ne conduisent pas à la privatisation de l'eau qui va à l'encontre des objectifs de l'accès universel à l'eau? Alors, je vais donner donc tout de suite la parole à Madame Piazza pour répondre et après à Monsieur Serra. Madame Piazza, vous souhaitez répondre?
Thank you very much for your question. Yes, as I said, I mean, we by dialoguing with partner countries and reflecting on the investments of previous year, we said we wish to continue to invest in water and sanitation and health infrastructure. And we believe that indeed there is a potential to work on a whole range of partners, including private sector. But as I stressed at the very beginning of my intervention, we will make sure that everything is done is in line with human rights. The key point of my intervention is that indeed one of the basis of our policy framework is that access to water and sanitation and health and services must be considered a human right. So indeed, when working with the private sector and financing projects, those aspects will be really taken into account. Thank you very much.
Merci bien, Madame. Alors, merci, chers collègues, pour ces discussions très intéressantes et aussi très constructives. Et maintenant, je vais donner la parole à Monsieur Serra, mais pour 3 minutes.
Obrigado. Bem, a água, gostei imenso de todas as contribuições, creio que não há muito a dizer, que foram mesmo mais comentários, mas que queria referir que se olharmos para aquilo que é o consumo da água, temos que considerar, por exemplo, que temos uma população que está cada vez mais a transitar para, por exemplo, carne, e para alimentar a indústria da carne é necessária também muita água. A agricultura intensiva consome também exageradamente água a mais, mesmo em regiões onde há stress hídrico, portanto há necessidade regulamentar. Eu queria mesmo sublinhar esta palavra regulamentação e cruzá-la com a palavra de justiça, porque a regulamentação é importante, mas a implementação também é, e o acesso à justiça, incluindo em instâncias internacionais, quando realmente está em causa um direito tão importante que é um direito humano. Hoje, cada vez mais, somos também defensores do direito ao clima, e para mim, eu não gostaria que a COP27 fosse mais uma COP, que ao analisar todo este processo de grandes eventos internacionais, dá-me a sensação que estamos a falar muito e ser incapazes de dizer basta e começarmos a tomar decisões. Eu sei que a humanidade funciona muitas vezes funciona quando está numa situação de ameaça, mas isto está a funcionar para uns. Uma grande maioria de nós que já está nessa situação de risco não tem voz. Então, é o direito à voz também, o direito a sermos escutados nesta COP27. E esta COP tem que trazer resultados há pouco tempo. Nós já não temos tempo, temos que agir agora. Então, eu queria pedir também a todos vós que aproveitassem esta COP, sei que parte de vocês está envolvida neste trabalho, e usasse essa COP para claramente conseguirmos que este Acordo de Paris seja implementado, e que, se não estivermos confortáveis com o teor de vinculação jurídica, então tudo façamos para trabalhar nesse cenário, porque amanhã é tarde demais. Obrigado a todos e fiquem bem.
Merci bien, Monsieur Serra. Merci aussi pour ce débat qui était très animé. Et nous allons passer au point d'ordre du jour suivant. Alors, divers. Dans le cadre...
Eu fazia uma experiência, desculpem eu quebrar o protocolo. Tem uma garrafa de água que todos têm à frente. Vamos tentar consumi-la até ao fim. Esta garrafa custou água para produzir 7 a 9 vezes mais a água que está contida no seu interior. E ela é extraída numa serra muito bonita chamada Serra da Vumba. Mas nos encontros e nas reuniões, grande parte da água é desperdiçada. Bebemos 3, 4 goles e deixamos depois a água em cima da mesa. Vai para onde? Para o lixo. Obrigado.
Donc, dans le cadre de ce point, les membres de notre commission ont la possibilité de soulever toute question urgente et d'actualité d'intérêt commun qui relève de la compétence de notre commission. Est-ce que les députés souhaitent-ils prendre la parole? Qui souhaiterait prendre la parole? Personne? Bon, plus de questions, on passe à la suite. Alors, notre prochaine réunion se tiendra à Bruxelles au mois de mars. La date exacte sera communiquée par courrier par le secrétariat. Mes chers collègues, je vous remercie donc tous et toutes pour vos contributions au cours de cette réunion. Je tiens également à remercier tous les participants externes, la Commission européenne, le co-secrétariat et bien entendu les interprètes. Merci à tout le monde et la séance est levée. Bon après-midi. C'est fini. Hallo.